Is this working now? Welcome to chat. God, I hope this is live. Oh, hello, Tyler. I see you there. Woo. So I'm just trying to get this working on my pad as well, so I can friggin'... The chat's kind of working all right from here. Okay. Oh, hey, Luna's in here as well. Hello, Extosis. So I don't know how to spell that name. Montezuma is in here as well. Okay, looks like it's working. Sup Richie, says Seba. Howdy. So, we're live, and I'm on vacation, so no Beelzebub. You can just go. So my wife's still here in the back, you might hear her. How's the vacation going? Yeah, it's going good. Just came down for my brother's birthday. Uh-oh, personal information online, what do I do? Anyway, Dave on the dance floor. Hello there, Dave. Hello there, Dave. So I got some questions. Where am I? We're not going to talk about that.
Guam.
So we got some questions. I posted the thing on the community channel, and we're gonna. I guess we'll go through them. I think the top one is from the Marshall Esotericist. Usually he's in here. You in here, Marshall? Oh, if he's not, too bad. He says, for the Q&A, what is your opinion on Wilhelm Reich and his idea of orgone energy? So, I haven't read him. Obviously, I've seen podcasts and seen interviews with people studying him, and it sounds legit. I don't know about the organometer thing, like making the little room or the thing that collects the energy. A lot of that, and then there's the whole government thing, trying to get his tech and suppress it. He's basically on the right track. Hello, Dexims. Reich is basically on the right track. He came out of Freud and then realized there's something more esoteric to the sexual energy. It's not just things bad suppress into subconscious lol. It's no, you can actually transmute the subconscious. You can actually transmute those energies. Yeah. Squoze says, yeah, rub that dome, big boy. I got a little sunburned on the weekend. So I'm just like, oh boy.
Went outside.
Hey, Marshall's here. Yeah, we were just talking about you actually. Hello there, my boy. Yeah, we're just talking about orgone energy. My opinion is I need to study that more, but it seems interesting. Once again, I'm not sure how far he got. Not sure how far he got in that, because it's like, he made some. He definitely was in the right direction, but then he died and the government took all his stuff. So we don't know. But he's an interesting guy. Anyway, it's superfluous. So I'm going to move on to the next question. Next question was by Presumably Rasna. I have no idea how to pronounce that. But he says, how would you label yourself? This is a very difficult question for me. It's difficult because I don't want to sound... when you're like... How should I put this? The problem with labels is the label itself doesn't actually express the essence of the thing. And so you end up either having to just choose a label which is kind of sort of in the direction and hoping people get it, or you stick a bunch of labels together, which just kind of ends up sounding pretentious. And it's like, if I wanted to say I'm like, what? I'm an archaeofuturist, lunapunk, Gnostic, panpsychist. It's like half those words most people don't even know. And so, with hermetic tendencies or something, it's like when people ask, usually I used to tell people when they'd come, they'd be like, so how do you, what are you? I used to say, I identify as a Gnostic, because I'm like, yeah, sure. Not, once again, I tell people, people who know, it's like, it's not so much the demiurgs and dualism thing, it's more, the true definition of a Gnostic, in my mind, is someone who cares more about direct experience. Like in religions, or the religion is a religion or a tradition usually focuses on belief, at least in the West. You know, you believe in the scriptures. There's no direct experience of it. But a Gnostic, by definition, is a knower, so you have a direct experience. And I was like, yeah, that's what my aim is, in a sense, to have the direct experience, not just to have it off rational deductions off scripture, like some theologian or something. And so I use that term, but even that one, sometimes I meet a person, I'm like, yeah, I'm a Gnostic, and then they'll just look at me and be like, yeah, me too, and I'm like, you're a Gnostic, and they'd be like, yeah, agnostic, and I'm like, not even close. Not even close. So now I'm just like, whatever. And we got Sandman blessing America. And Normie Utopia's here. Yo, bro. Shout out from Jamaica. Oh, you're the one Jamaican guy who watches my stuff. Hell yeah. Carol, you huggeruff. Thanks, man. Thanks, man. So, yeah, when... It's just difficult. It's just difficult. Nowadays, I'm just like, I'm just a guy. I'm just a guy. Just a guy with many interests. So now, going down the list. Next one is Sky1X asks, I often heard about if your cultural background belongs to, let's say, Germanic, Slavic, Celtic, like me, or he says like himself, as a German, that it is very, if not most powerful, winky face, for you to align with your personal cultural roots, like in my case, Edda, Odin, Thor, this normal hemisphere, natural nature believing system, than, for example, doing Vedic stuff or South American shamanism. What is your opinion about that? So, yeah, basically, do I go back to the roots in my blood, or do I seek something transcendental, is the question. Michelle Lanarati says, hello, I'm a very real Grand Maga Satanic High Priestess. Hello, room. Hello, Michelle. Anyway, Sky One's question is interesting. Do you go to your roots, or do you go to the transcendental level? When I take this, Guido von List is a controversial figure, but he has this one line where he says there's like 3 levels in a tradition, and it's like there's the exoteric, there's the esoteric, and then there's this one level that's like ancient memory blood thing. And so for the runes, he says, yeah, there's exoteric stuff, and anyone can study that. And then he says there's esoteric stuff, and also anyone, by doing runic practices and working with them, can actually tap into the esoteric part of it. But then he says there's this psychic, blood, ancient memory, cultural level, which you do actually need to have at least a drop of, German in your blood to connect to that third level. And it's like, the way I see it is like, look, here's the thing. There's 2 things interplaying within you. You are fundamentally a cross in the sense that you are a bunch of biology that perpetuates through time. Your biology you have from your father, your mother, and your descendants backwards. But there's also something higher that is imprinting onto that biology. And that higher thing tries to express itself. And when it expresses itself, it often can't, or it tries to express itself and then it's diverted because it like hits a wall because of biology or because of certain psychological issues, or we live in a society. You are your 5 friends who you spend the most time with, so it's like your culture, astrological forces, the friends you congregate with, certain concepts crystallize, and if that little thing can't actually express itself. So there's 2 kind of pronged things. There is a biological reality which can feel enriching. You can tap into that, and maybe you should. But there is a transcendental reality. And so my answer would basically be something like, if you're into the Germanic stuff, if you are German, yeah, go for it. Go find the ancient pagan stuff. But also look at other traditions, like the Vedic traditions, because every tradition will have its, cultural blood memory component, but it will also have an esoteric transcendental component. And so when you look into other traditions, I would say don't be the white guy who goes into Taoism and then just like dresses up like a Taoist and gets Taoist bells or something and like and plays a Chinese instrument. It's like, yeah, I'm a Taoist now. And it's like, no. It's like, there's the metaphysics, there's the meditation, there's the alchemical practices. Those are what you extract. There's the esoteric thing that develops you within. The cultural thing is, and it's an extra for the cultural component. Oh, hello. Now we've got to, let me just get through some of these questions here. Have you seen the series Lodge 49? So where I am in the world, it's hard to get. Amazon Prime had the first episode, which I saw, really enjoyed, and they were like, yeah, it's not you can't get the rest. So I was like, god damn. So I really want to watch the rest of the series. It looks really good, or at least the setup looked really good. Vril? How do you pronounce that? Or is that Seven Rise? Is that how you pronounce your name? Hello, my bad if you already answered this question before, but where are you in your practice? What can you do and or experience when you meditate? That's a very personal question. I came from a place where a lot of people talked about what kind of happens in their practice. And so it's hard because there's two sides of it. One part is it can be very enriching, like to see someone else attain something, or see the process. It can be very useful and inspiring. On the other hand, it creates in other people so much dysfunction, envy, and then also people get really schizophrenic and just like, yeah, by the way, I had this experience with Jesus and he told me that I was the one. And it's just like, so it kind of has become this like thing with me where I don't like talking about that. I really don't like it's more just puts a bad taste in my mouth. It's like the guy who's vegetarian, not for spiritual reasons, but because he worked at like a butcher's or an offal house, where, like where they kill the cows and you see all the organs and stuff. And it's just a visceral thing. He's not like a vegetarian for any noble moral thing. It's just like a visceral reaction because of his personal experience. That's how I feel whenever people ask me about my practices. I'm just like, But, I'll say my practice is internalization and meditation. I basically learned in a Raja Yoga kind of way. And then since then, I'm kind of moved into a more Buddhist forest tradition, Theravadan, jnanas practice, but Raja Yoga, I think Raja Yoga is kind of, I don't know, it got really popular at one point, and then everybody wanted the new thing, so they went to Zen, they went to Tibetan Buddhism, Mahamudra, Dzogchen, or the jhanas, and it's just like, man, you know what? Raja Yoga's good stuff. It's a good base. It's really good starting structure for anyone who wants to learn. So I'd still recommend it. Back. I'm just reading through the chat now. Jesus Christ, everyone's yapping. Should I do the chat first, or should I just go through the posted comments first? I think I'll go through some of the posted comments first, and then I'll come back to you, chat. Sorry. So, the next posted comment on the community post is, I always believe, so this one is by, what's his name? Figgity Fowl, 6 days ago. Okay, what a name. I always believed that the ultimate spiritual goal is to break the cycle of rebirth. And in order to achieve that, I thought I had to practice the ability of letting go of material things and people, and being able to give them up at any time. This sparked a question to me: how am I supposed to have a child in this spiritual road? Is it not just me handing down the responsibility to another me while simultaneously creating something to attach to, or am I missing something? And am I retarded? Be honest. Thanks for the insight, by the way. They mean a whole lot. Thank you, Figgity Found. Someone responded to him. That's a good quote. Okay, cool. So the ultimate spiritual goal is to break the cycle of rebirth. I mean, yeah, in a Buddhist sense. This is not a strict thing at all. This is not like ultra correct doctrinally, but you can technically categorize the difference between East and West as, in the West, the ultimate spiritual goal is to return man to a state before the fall. Whereas the Eastern version is the ultimate spiritual goal is to return man to a state before the universe existed. Kind of get what I mean? There are these little differences here and there. between East and West. And so a lot of Eastern stuff has come over and mixed with the Western stuff. And I don't know, Shamadi, or is the deathless state, the state of no thing, is that the same as the Unio Mystica, or whatever it is, or Henosis and Apotheosis? How do they fit, next to Mahamudra and Dzogchen and things like that? There's a lot of tension between there. But the next part of your question is, in order to achieve that, I have to practice the ability of letting go of material things. So, yeah, but then you have, people like Marpa, who were, the teacher of Milarepa. For those who don't know who Marpa is, in the Tibetan tradition, he's famous for, he was like a farmer, went off, found some teachings, found a teacher, Telopa, became enlightened, came back, and then he just lived the life of a farmer. It's not like he became a part of the temple tradition, but like other yogis like Milarepa found him and learnt off Marpa. And it's like Marpa was still a farmer. He lived on the farm. He had a wife and kids. And it's like they didn't even really kind of understand or know who he was. And there's like some story of like when Marpa died, he had attained such a high level that his physical body like transmuted and turned into like rainbows, and the house filled with like rainbow light. So you'd open like a door to like the cupboard, and instead of the pantry, that would just be like a rainbow light, and you'd just be like, what the hell, and close the pantry, and like stuff like that happened in his house when he died. And all of the Buddhists went kind of crazy and was like, oh my God, he's a master. It's like, so there's these two different tensions. There is people who stay in the world and do the magic, do mysticism in the world, and then there are people who extrapolate and they go out into the countryside and become hermits and walk this isolated path of spirituality. And it's like, which one's better? Which one's easier? Which one's harder? Which one's most noble? There's actually a lot of debate and tension, not necessarily tension, but also those two paths also sometimes meet and kind of get along in a weird way. Almost like it's almost like they're two different tendencies, and you don't necessarily choose which path. It's more like it's a tendency inbuilt within you, and then you kind of, some people just gravitate naturally to the path of isolation in the mountains, and other people are like, nah, I just can't do it, man. And then, they have a family, they have a wife, but also in their spare time, they're Sigma male grinding the spiritual path. And it's like, and they attain. And it's not like a lesser path. In some cases, they even are greater teachers than the ones out there in the temples. And so it's this, I would say, like, look at that literature and find those stories. That may be hard, but it's like, yeah, there's a bit of so to answer your question, it's kind of hard because I'm critiquing your premise instead of answering directly. But yeah, this sparked, how do I supposed to have a child on the spiritual road? Have a child, bro. I mean, if that's what you really want. You're not retarded. I mean, we're all retarded. Figgity foul. Anyway, I'm not sure if I answered your question, Figgity, or helped at all, but that's how I'll answer that one there. Maybe I'll do one question on the post, and then I'll go back to the chat here, because they seem to be dumping a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, so Michelle is called Neutral Born. Dave on the dance floor. Do you think the fourth book of occult philosophy is necessary as compared to the three books? The fourth book is the practices. So the three books is mainly literally philosophy, as in it's like a theoretical structure that then you base practices off of. Whereas my understanding is the fourth book is more a bunch of practices. So it's not necessarily a comparison, it's just an extension onto that. And you may not need to use the fourth book. You could just read the three books and then just, I don't know, jump to reading Eliphas Levi or something, and everything can work out. Seba says, love that video made on Borges. Didn't know he was esoteric like that. Yeah, I was surprised as well, man. Thank you, by the way. I love Borges. Loved Borges. Now let me just read another post comment. Okay, Krista Porapiakian 8414. I hope that's how you pronounce that. He says, is the Samarang Brotherhood real, or is it just another allegorical story by Gurdjieff? That's a hard one, because it may be a little bit of both. There may be some group. It may not be called the Summerong Brother. Well, they found like there's a monastery in China called Sumrong or something like that. Monastery, but did Gurdjieff visit that? Or is that just a coincidence? There's always some weird stuff about that, but the main essence of what is the essence of the Summerong Brotherhood? It's that the idea that there is a secret brotherhood out there. There is a school out there that still exists. More particularly, it's almost as if the societies in the world that you know about, Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn or Rosicrucian societies or whatever, or even Freemasons, they're more the kindergarten schools for greater schools, or greater degrees, greater orders. And then those schools may be connect, or the teachers there may merely be students to a greater master somewhere else, and there's this extrapolation, and then where does it end, really? It ends in this kind of central idea that there's this brotherhood of super mega masters who are all immortal and are just in telepathic communication all the time. And that's this idea of the masters. It seems Gurdjieff is kind of going into that, but I'm not sure if he's going into that for because that's become a thing, these secret masters. I'm not sure if he's going into that because he believes oh no, they're real, or if he's going into that as like a joke almost, like as a critique of all the other spiritual groups that kind of believe that kind of thing. So he's using it as a motif for his own teachings. But at the very least, he sees it as a useful idea, hence why he has it there in the first place. Anyway, back to the chat. Tyler, you've mentioned a few times that orgasmic energy should be drawn in and up. I've heard of the techniques before, but do you have a reference for someone without a teacher? Look up the word kareza. Karezza.
Look up the word kofefe.
No, not kafifi. Kareza. Sometimes it's spelled with a C. But that is, you could say, the Western technique. A lot of the stuff in the West that claims to be mystical and Eastern, it really actually goes back to that stuff. And it's quite interesting. I think someone else, on the post, asked about Samael Aun Weor. He's a big guy. Or he's a guy that a lot of people, I've seen a lot of people drop his name here and there. It's Robert Seffer in particular. And, people don't know, he gets his stuff from Arnaldo Crumheller, the German Rosicrucian. But it's where did Crumheller get his stuff from? Well, he got his stuff from Papoose. I should say. Specifically, the esoteric sexual alchemy. Samael got it from Arnaldo Crumheller, who got it from Papoose. And where did Papoose get it from? Papoose got it from the Kareza movement. So that's more of just a semen retention movement, but specifically the drawing it in and up. Now a lot of my early videos are, they're early videos. I'm also in a process of learning, so it's not like I believe the same thing. A lot of my old videos, I'm like, should I just delete them? But I kind of leave them up there so people can see my process in a way. But with the energies, I've actually changed my opinion of them. I actually don't... It's not that you don't draw them in and up. It's more the mechanism required to do that is something different. It's not an intention, you visualize the energies. I'm going to visualize my Vril coming up my spine, and you're trying to force it. Because you can force illusions. You can desire something so much that you force a visualization, or even a somatic experience. I'm holding my hand here and I can imagine a little tiny octopus named Oscar in the palm of my hand, and I can feel his little tentacles whip around. I can create, and then I crush him and he's dead. Oh, poor Oscar, he's dead, he's gone. But I can make myself feel a somatic experience. And so it's some people... Deluding yourself into feeling certain sensations is different from going through a process and having actual energetic experiences move through your body. I think the real way to do it is to actually place attention within the body. Soak your consciousness, the fluid of the mind, as the Taoists say, into your body and place your attention into the body. No visualizations necessarily. A lot of the visual stuff, I think, is more indicators of you're doing it correct. It's not that you're supposed to force yourself to visualize it. It's like if it starts happening properly, that will appear in front of you. But what you're supposed to do is get that attention into the body and focus it on a place. And where you place your attention, that place is where energy moves to, and the energy builds up. And because it builds up in your body, physically, literally, it then begins to compress, and you feel sensations of maybe like pulling or twisting or heat or bubbling. You're basically working with either, the lower three chakras or the dantian or whatever you want to call it. But you basically just continuously move the energy there by what? By placing your attention there and just sitting, guarding against the mind so that you don't fall into memory or fall into a desire or a fantasy. You're guarding against that. And you're consciously just focused on the cauldron of your stomach, as Paracelsus would say. And you just sit. And this is cultivation, slow cultivation. And you just build your attention there, slowly, slowly, slowly. And the energy moves there, and the energy naturally compresses. And as it naturally compresses, it refines, and it begins to, if you have a bunch of, what happens, if you have a glass with water with a glass, and you put too much ice in it, the last ice that you put in, the last block of ice you put in, the water spills out. It's like you're pushing energy in, and as you push it in, naturally, something is squeezed and starts to rise up. Naturally, things begin to be pulled open. That's how I would actually describe that alchemical refining process now. I'm actually not a big fan of any visualizations or any intention or will, or mantras are fine. Doing different breathing techniques to kind of feel the inner airs flow through your body. Yeah, that's great. But I know, using intention, intending for something to happen, meditation is supposed to be the opposite of thinking. If you're intending for something to happen, you're thinking, visualizing. All of that is actually an antithesis to what we're trying to achieve. So that's how I'd answer that question. I hope I answered that all right, Tyler. Next one. 2011 RGM asks, are you at all familiar with alternative history? If so, what are your views on the subject? Thank you. Yeah, I like a bit of alternative. I'm an Atlantis enjoyer. I'm not committed to the bit so much that I'll delude myself despite any all other evidence to the contrary that something, is the way it is. But I think there's an importance in a lot of the old stories. I'm a big fan of myth is truer than history. Not in the sense that myth is an exact record, but exact records are old and stuffy and boring. And there's two different categories that history falls into. It's like the critical history or monumental history, and neither one is really objective. Critical history aims to only critique, see the bad in what is history. Monumental history aims to see only what is good. And it's like, if you can only have one or the other, you got to go with monumental history, because otherwise you're cutting your roots off, you're killing your roots, you're seeing nothing but negativity in your ancestors, and your future is then lost because you've also lost your past. Saying bye to my wife. No, she just tripped. And so with alternative history, it's always interesting. I find alternative history interesting because it's the same thing with conspiracy theories, in the essence of there's weird data points that people find, and then they overlay a narrative on top of those data points. And the narrative is often wrong, but the data points that are underneath the narrative are just data points. They're facts that exist in the world. And that's what I don't like about debunkers. The debunkers go in and they debunk the narrative, but then they ignore the data points that the narrative is based off. And it's like, bro, what are you doing? And so I like looking at alternative histories every now and then, because alternative history people are coming at things from such a different angle that they end up pulling out weird data points from like places that you just never expect, and real things like, oh, there's the. Did you hear about the Welsh prince that left on the ocean and went? What is it? Went west. Sorry, I'm tripping balls. There was a Welsh prince that went west and just disappeared over the ocean, and then years later, like 10 years later, he came back and claims that there was this paradise, this land, and took a bunch of people and left again, and then it just was never heard of again. And it's like his descriptions kind of sound like America, and there may be some evidence that there was not just the Norse, but there was also a Welsh expedition that made it to America. And it's like, oh, that's really interesting. But then they go completely schizo, and they have like a whole bunch of other stuff attached to it. But the data points are always interesting. So it's one of those things like I'm not like a huge fan. The one thing I'll say I don't appreciate about alternative history is when they try to delete something from history. Like, I'm not a big fan of, oh yeah, this time period just didn't exist. This time period is just fake because the church made it. And it's like, yeah, but there's a lot of things that happened in that time period. And usually what happens when people say that is they say that and they go, everything that happened in that time period is part of the conspiracy. It didn't happen. And it's like, no, a lot of important things happened. There's a lot of beautiful things in there. There could be esoteric texts in there. And if you are so autistically committed to, history is fake, then you have to ignore certain people that existed, certain texts, certain movements. And that is, to me, that is not an expanding of knowledge. That's a kind of a moving away of knowledge. Like, Napoleon never existed. And it's like, there's so much stuff attached to Napoleon that if you're committed to that, you also have to just say that all of this other stuff is a part of the conspiracy. And you just have to negate all of that other stuff. And it's like, what are you losing? What are you losing to try and gain something else? That's what I kind of ask. So it's hard. Like, there's some alternative history stuff where I'm just like, nah, not a fan. And then there's some which is like, I'll listen to some Tartaria stuff because they always pull out some random, a completely random data point from somewhere. I'm like, oh, that's actually interesting. Like some technology from the medieval ages. I'm like, oh, well, that's really cool. That's a really cool data point. And then they'll be like, and this is proof that Tartaria existed. And I'm like, no. But anyway, that's how I feel about the alternative history crew. Is Michelle asking anything? Deep meditation can cause astro. I think people are just talking. I'm just looking back at the chat. Nirvana. Seven Rise in the chat asks, what's your opinion on normal people who had an NDE experience and describe being able to retain a sense of self despite not being practitioners of any spirituality? I mean, yeah, that's normal. Because you have a near-death experience, but it's not like you go through the death process. So it's like the constructed self that they built in their life is still present. So they don't go through the death process, but they may have an experience of something, and so there has to be something there to experience it. And wouldn't you know, they do have a matrix of what would you call it? A kind of an ego border, a metaphysical anatomy for extra normal impressions to impact on. So that's what a near-death experience is, basically. I was like, and for normal people, I think death is the only spiritual thing they experience. That's someone without any spirituality, because, whether you like it or not, it'll make you spiritual. The experience will make you spiritual in the end. I'll just do another one. I think there's Marshall says, what's your opinion of Thelema? I noticed there is an undertone of criticism against Thelema and Aleister Crowley. However, I still love this channel. But I just want to understand your position. Yeah, I'm not like a super anti-hater necessarily, but it's just like, like I'll tell you, like with Crowley, to be perfectly honest, I've only read book 4. So I've got the Stephen Skinner edition, and it's good. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. The thing about, like, let me just trigger a bunch of people. Aleister Crowley is the Deepak Chopra of magic. With Deepak, his audience is basically old women who are materialistic their entire life, and then they kind of, their beauty starts to wane, and they become, they're old women with a lot of money, and they're like, I need to get spiritual, and so they type in like chakras into Google, and it's like, did you hear about this guy called Deepak Chopra? He's so spiritual, he invented chakras. And it's like, Aleister Crowley is kind of the magic equivalent of that, like, kids who want to be edgy type magic with a K into Google and like read his Wikipedia page and are like, yes. And then they just start aping the worst aspects of Aleister Crowley online, like, that's basically a lot of what you see. Well, things are changing nowadays, but with Crowley, when I read book 4, I can see it. I can see it in Crowley. Like, if that's the first thing you ever read, I can understand why. Like, that would blow your mind, and you would just get on your knees and get your slob on for Crowley. Like, I completely understand. For me, like, when I read book 4, I had already read, like, all of the Unfortunate. I'd read some Levi, I'd read some Hartman. I'd been through Initiation into Hermetics twice. I'd read Gurdjieff. I read all of Ouspensky's books. Even though there's only a handful. But it's like, I read some Steiner, and it's like, by the time I read Crowley, I was like, oh yeah, cool. If you've read Crowley, he'll say something and it will be genius, and you're like, oh, that's really good. And then you turn the page and he just goes full cocaine mode and ruins everything. And it's like, nah. And so it's like, it's just the thing of like, I know people disagree or people say this, but it's like, I find he's a little overrated. And people who are really into Crowley, I like triggering them because I'm a terrible person. I just love saying things like that. So I like giving a little criticism and then people being like, "What? How could you say that?" I'm like, just did. So anyway, that's my view. On a Thelema, I'm not really part of the community, so I don't really have a big what do you call it, concept or opinion on Thelema as a community. Anyway, it's just, the only Thelemites I've ever connected with have been online. I kind of know a guy, but he's not really a Thelemite per se. Hang on, Jesus, there's a plane going overhead. I hope you guys can still hear me. What's a Frank Sunasan? Isn't Gnosticism Middle Platonism with Judeo-Christian syncretism? Yes, historical Gnosticism is. But my definition of Gnosticism is just gnosis. What does gnosis mean? Gnosis means knowledge. So without the demiurgs and dualism, someone who is a Gnostic is someone who has experienced metaphysical reality. Now let's do another question from the community post. Speaking of Gnosticism, next question. Zioni Bajlando 9270. What do you think is the Gnostic take on Jesus, and was he a PDF file according to MK 1450? I guess that's Bible verse. I'm not going to look that up. No, I don't think he was a PDF file. That's weird. Is that a real hot take? Huh. Gnostic take on Jesus. Well, that's hard because a lot of Gnostics have different takes. But well, when you read like Nag Hammadi literature, usually what there is there's a divine prototype of man, and the prototype gets messed with and Adam and Eve get made, but that prototype still is kind of active in the universe, and that seems to be the Christ. This is one thing in Gnosticism that's interesting. There does seem to be this kind of division between historical, like a man, and the Christ sometimes. So it's something that is incarnated. Like, in the church, it's Jesus is what? He is both fully human and both divine. And he was born that way. There was no change in anything like that. It's like, in Gnostic kind of some places, it's kind of like Jesus was, either he was born that way, or maybe he was born a normal human and then became divine. And in those schools, then what are their rituals based on? Their rituals are based on, okay, well, if he was a human and became divine, then it's like, oh, then there's a path, then we can do that too. So it's then, I guess that would be, the Christian sect Arianism, the Arian, the Arian heresies, that Christ was born a man and became divine. There would have been something similar, a similar flavor in that. Kind of, I remember seeing an article with a guy being like, Freemasonry is basically a continuation of the Arian heresies. So there's something like that in a lot of Gnostic sects, that there is a force called the Christ, or is represented by an eagle or some other representation, and it is descending and descends into the world and incarnates. But that's completely like anathema to normal church theology. Like a normal church theologian would just immediately start like frothing at the mouth. Their eyes would roll back into their head and they'd start pooing their pants. If you ever like said that to a Christian theologian, they'd be like, blah, blah, heresy. Like that's, and so but yeah, I find that take more interesting, that Gnostic take, because then it's like, oh, there's an actual path. It's not just Jesus exists and you suck, and then you just follow the church lol. Also, the time of revelation is over, so if you better not be having revelations, because if you do, that they come from Satan and we're gonna like burn you on the stake or some shit. It's like, bruh, calm down. Anyway, let's check the chat. Seba asks, do you have any opinion on apocalyptic Islam and Gog and Magog? Oh, okay. Nah. I gotta find out more about it. I'm a lightweight in Islam and esoteric Islam and Sufism and esoteric Sunniism and all of that stuff. It's interesting. Does interest me though. Let me just see one more down here. Odin Wormcake, thoughts on the lies about NASA going to the moon, the toroidal shape of reality, and how this relates to magic. Oh, and then Luna asked a question, but then redacted it. Maybe I answered it. So Odin Wormcake, on the lies about NASA going to the moon. Depends. I mean, that's still open, kind of. What do you call? That's still out in the open. Is it like an open question, I should say? It's like, did they go to the moon, or didn't they? Or did they go to the moon and it's just the footage that was faked? Or did they go to the moon? You know, the astronaut that came back. I remember one guy critiquing the after interview of the astronauts, one guy saying they were drugged up, or it's obvious that they're lying, or one guy even said they show psychological damage as if they've been hypnotized by someone. And it's because there's the two schizo theories of moon landings: is it never happened and they're lying, or it did happen and they saw something, man, and they're hiding something. And so it's like, which schizo theory are we going for? Nonetheless, my take on NASA has always been, there is stuff out there in the universe that they're totally seeing, and then they edit all of their photos to just be like, yeah, it's an empty universe. What is it exactly that they're seeing and they're not showing us? I don't know. Don't know, but there's definitely something out there. Toroidal shape. I used to be into sacred geometry, but not anymore. It's not that sacred geometry is bad or anything, but a lot of stuff to do with geometry and numerology, I find it just makes people schizo. Like, especially numerology. Like, people get into geometry or numerology, and it's like, there are numbers everywhere, bro. There are numbers there are numbers on car license plates, numbers on billboards. If you get into numerology, numbers everywhere, it'll just make you schizo. And if you're already schizophrenic, getting into numerology will just make you more schizophrenic. And I feel the same kind of applies for geometry, sacred geometry. A lot of that stuff, I don't know, I just keep it personal. Another question. Let's see on the community post. Have you ever thought about doing collaborations with example for meme analysis, Nemeton, Esoterica, or anyone else? Or Joey at Library of the Untold would be a good collaboration. Oh yeah. I mean, I'm open to it. Hit me up, boys. Hit me up. I'll do it. I'll do one. But I'm just the new kid on the street, really. I mean, I've been around for a little bit, but I've only started making good content for a little while. I don't know about good content, but you guys seem to like it. Anyway, UFOlogy, just found your channel and wanted to say I find your videos very interesting. I've been watching the videos on initiation, and I'm wondering how I'm meant to know what I'm doing is right for me. A little bit of intuition, and I mean, I'll quote something I remember in There's a Taoist book called Entering the Dragon Gate, read it years ago. It's this big, it's a biography. It's kind of a guy's journey, but throughout it they mention other texts, they mention concepts and very complicated things. Then right at the end, the two students ask the master, and it's like, what's the most important thing in Taoism? And the master's like, intuition. And I was like, what? I'm about to throw the book across the room. I was like, no, keep reading. And the guy described something like this. He said, intuition is like something, there is something higher in you, and it's reaching down, and then you have to reach up. And that's what intuition is. You have to do a work, and it's almost like an esoteric version of Christian grace. Like, you do a lot of work, and it's almost like you don't have the knowledge to actually finish it, but you work so hardcore, it's like the gods look down and are like, yeah, he's based. And then grace is them filling in the rest. There's something that comes in from the other side, and then the peepees just touch. And that leads to a type of inspiration. That leads to a type of like an aha. That leads to a type of inner knowing. And you can kind of, it's hard. It's like, if you've ever been in a class or like an esoteric lecture, and as the guy's talking, you then, a question comes into you, and you think, oh, I wonder, they're giving a class on like, I don't know, cosmology. And as you're listening to the lecture, a question arises in you, and then you go, I wonder what the answer is. And you think about asking it, but then as you think about asking it, an answer to that question also arises in you. And so you don't ask it, but then someone else gets up and they ask a question, and it's your question. And then the teacher answers it, and it was the answer that was inside you. This happens to a lot of people, and it happened to me in the early days. And it's like that things like that are literally the universe teaching you how to arrive at knowledge. It's like, yes, we have senses and we can gain empirical data. Yes, you can rationally deduce things, but there's also a secret third thing that you need to develop. And it's so gay to call it intuition because, New Age people have ruined so many things, but it basically is the best way to describe it, is a type of intuition. It is a type of inner knowing. Like with rationalism, you start at a premise and then you rationalize and you end up at a conclusion. Intuition or direct conscious experience is, there is a perception and there's comprehension and there's just nothing in between. They happen at like almost simultaneously. It's like you perceive and you comprehend. There's no premise and what if this happens and logical and blah, 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 and what if then therefore, and then you end up at no. That middle part doesn't exist. It's perceive and comprehend at the same time, or at least the peepees touching are like just super close. It's like you perceive something, go, and then boom, it's like, oh, yeah, I get it. And then there's things that you can, then it's not like you're just using that as well. Then, you go and read a book and you read something in the book and it confirms the experience you have. Or it can be something different. It's like you read a book first and then later on you have an experience that confirms the theory in the book. There's this interplay between your rational reasoning, the things you kind of read or deduce from life through your experience through your direct senses. And then there's the secret third thing. It's not that one is better than the other. It's like you're using all three and triangulating. So I'd say, like, once again, just find a system. I would say a system that uses internalization and a system that works macrocosmically. So in the sense of, find a meditation system that you like. I like Raja Yoga, and then do something that also works in the macrocosm, i.e., if you're Christian, it's prayer to God, but like, if you're into Hermeticism, it's like, I don't know, ceremonial magic with the 7 planetary intelligences. Do that as well. Something in the macrocosmos and something with the microcosmos. And then hopefully all of the peepees at the different ends just touch together, and that's magic. That's initiation, baby. Anyway, I'm just being silly. Let me go back to the little chat. Never forget Oscar. Sorry, just looking at all your comments now. Oh, the schizo prophet. The body can do more than the mind will permit. Exactly. UFOlogy. Another guy's in here. Yo to you, UFO guy. Oh, UFOlogy is back. Also, I'm wondering if there is any cohesive cosmology in this. Relationships between spirits and people, angels and demons, the ideas of objective moral good and evil. That's like the answer to that is like an hour-long question. It's like, yeah, there's totally cosmology. I wish I could like screen share and just, did someone drop some cash in here? I gotta go like down and find it. Can I just click that and see who it was? No. Goddamn, streaming from a phone is gay. Oh well. Yeah, there is a cosmology. Think of, it's hard to describe, but I'll just try to use a visualization. Think of two circles, and the bottom circle says the world, and the top circle says God. This is the first paradigm that usually people slip into. It's the tyrant on the throne paradigm. So there's a metaphysical world and a physical world, and they're separate, and God lords over the physical world. And maybe there are some people in the physical world that intercede on the behalf of God, and they tell you what to believe. You know, the priests. That's tyrant on the throne, whatever. Next one is, just think of a circle, and in the circle it says God equals the world. You know, you are God, man. There is no path. You just need to learn to be. Hippie bullshit. This is hippie bullshit. And a lot of people are into that, and for some people, maybe they need it. Maybe they're reacting against the tyrant of the throne and they just need something else. And it can be good for them, but I find that too reductionist and just eliminates everything. Now, the third and final one, it may not be the final one, but think of a kind of a circle, and then within the circle is another little circle. And the little circle says the world, and the bigger circle that subsumes the little circle says God. So in this paradigm, what do you have? God isn't like there's a bunch of beings, you know, there's plants and animals, humans, and then what's above humans, like angels, demons, God, lowercase g gods, diamonds, things like that, egregores. And then there's God on top. No, God isn't the thing at the top of the hierarchy. God is the substance that the entire hierarchy is derived from. And so God is a kind of an absolute abstract prima materia. So in a sense, and I like this paradigm because I can have my cake and eat it. I can be a being that exists amongst other beings, but also we are all one of the same substance. Also, I can say God is transcendent. There's the big circle and the little circle. So the parts of the big circle that aren't in the little circle, God is transcendent. Totally legit, totally understandable. But also, everything is derived from God. Within me, I feel God. I feel divinity within me, and that divinity I feel with me, I also see in nature. So I can also say that God is also immanent. And maybe that's the sacred work. Maybe the work is there is a part of God that's transcendent and there's a part of God that's immanent. And to have those two connect in a sacred marriage, that's initiation or something. You can say something like that. But that is like the basic paradigm or model I look at. I used to look at the world through, or different systems through. Does it fit everything perfectly and seamlessly? And you know, once again, these paradigms, I'm telling you them, but I'm also I'm not set on them. You know, they changed before, they're probably going to change in the future. I'm using the terms like God, but even my concept of God is in constant flux, so whatever. But yeah, you just need to be there. Definitely, there is a cohesive cosmology, but the cosmologies that you see, the cosmology that you have is more of a tool than an objective reality. I don't want to say that in like, oh, truth is relative. I just want to say it in the sense of like, perspectivism is useful, especially for your spiritual work. That's what how I want that to sound. I'm not sure if that's a cop-out to your question or not, but that's how I'd answer that. Next community post is, The Random Hermit asks, what's your outlook on Samael Aun Weor? I want to do a video on this, so I'm just going to skip over that question, but he's interesting. I mentioned before in the early part of the stream, he has been popping in really weird places, and he's an obscure occultist as well. He's a South American occultist. And it's like, when you look at that guy, when you read his works, he's clearly read Gurdjieff, Blavatsky, he's clearly from a Rosicrucian background, and it's like, pardon me, he says some stuff that's legit. But then when you look online about him, it's like there's just two people. There's people that like come and piss in their pants, and they just like, yes, Samael, no one else. And then there's people who are just like, we hate Samael, he's a fraud, and there's no one in between. And I kind of want to make, I kind of want to make some videos on this because I think it's interesting, and no one else talks about it. Literally, no one else talks about Samael. So maybe that'll be my next video coming up. Well, actually, no. I've got to finish my Political Compass video. I'm halfway through part 3 of Political Compass, then maybe I'll drop a Samael vid and then finish off that compass, eh? Going through. Tyler says, thank you, sir. Thank you, Tyler. Maria says, yo, hello. Schizoprophet, psychohistorical recursion. Okay. I think people are just talking in the chat now. Ufology. I just want to know if the hooks I'm grabbing are real and not just deceiving myself with confirmation bias by watching this content. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Another guy asks, if the Demiurge and the Matrix is real, which I've seen you mention it a couple of times, so if I were to guess you do believe it, are the gods and entities and whatnot also inside of it? So in the paradigm I just used, God is transcendent, and then there's, within the world, there is a hierarchy, and what's at the top of the hierarchy you could describe as the Demiurge. And it would mean that there is an uppercase G, an unknown God, sure, but it would also mean there are lowercase g gods. And they would exist inside and the world, as that moniker, is basically all of the dimensions of nature. So how would I describe this? I've done it in one of my initiation videos, but it's like, the idea of the flatlanders. You have a flat piece of paper. Do I have anything flat around me? No, I don't. Imagine a flat piece of paper and beings that live inside of it. How odd would it be to interact with them? And, I use the analogy of the pencil going through it. It's like, you drop a pen, you push a pencil through it and they see it in sections. But you see the entire pencil. You see what was in their past, and you can see what's in their future. To them, what is an aspect of time is to you an aspect of space. So to us, can we view time spatially? And if we can view time spatially, what does that mean? Is there like something greater than that? Like what, if that's the fourth dimension, can you get fifth dimensionality going? Like in, like in esoteric schools, they talk about different dimensions as well. Like the Theosophists talk about 7 dimensions. And it's like, damn, okay, so fourth dimension is time, fifth dimension is eternity, sixth dimension is beyond eternity, and the seventh dimension is like the 0 point that just contains everything. And in a way, you can look at all of that, but if you just go back to the Flatlander example, if a Flatlander is a kind of creature and you lift the Flatlander up, you can kind of show the Flatlander a third vertical, a third dimension. And in essence, a Flatlander really is technically a third-dimensional creature. It's just bound by its form. Its consciousness is bound by its form and its conditioning to only perceive 2 dimensions, but it is really 3-dimensional. And so you could say, well, we are technically 4th-dimensional. We're in the 4th dimension. We just don't perceive it because of our conscious state. And so then through this deduction, you could actually go like, well, if the 2nd dimension isn't a real dimension, it's just, constructed because of the way the Flatlander is being in the world, then, 4th dimension, 5th dimension, 6th dimension, 7th dimension, 3 dimension, dimensionality is a kind of a fake concept. There is no dimensions, there is one dimension. And there is one dimension, there is one nature, and parts of that nature are occulted to us for whatever reason. And that's where the Buddhists have the 6 realms, and some of the realms can see into each other, like, so the animal and the human realm are connected, but the hungry ghost realm is connected, but in a way that humans don't see the hungry ghosts, but they see us, and, that kind of thing. It's like, that is how that kind of works. And then there may be some kind of demiurgic architect that kind of lords or rules in the world. But it's like, does he rule? And how strong is he? The demiurge would have had to have a creation, therefore he has to have an end. Therefore, can there be multiple demiurges? Can he be toppled? Like, you know, the Jade Emperor in Taoism, can you, like, kick the Jade Emperor off his throne and become the Jade Emperor? Like, you know, when you look at certain Promethean entities in mythology and you hear things about war in heaven, you're kind of like, something, you start to see things get to start to be a little sexy, you know what I mean? Think, like, what's the whole thing, the shtick with Greek mythology? Like, in Greek mythology, who creates humans? It's like, who's the lead boss in Greek mythology? The demiurge, in a sense, is Zeus. Who creates humans? Who creates humans in Greek mythology? It's not Zeus. Prometheus. Prometheus is the creator of, he's our creator. Prometheus loves us. What happened to Prometheus? Yeah, he got tied to a frickin' mountain and has his liver pecked out every day. Our creator has that. What does Zeus do in all the myths? He comes down and he struggles with a bunch of human women. When you, like, frame that in a different way, like, hold on a second. There are two different sets of gods. There's Olympians and Titans. We were created by the Titans, technically, by Prometheus. And then there's these other gods that are, like, weird and a little bit rapey. And they tied our creator to a frickin' mountain. And it's like, huh. And then you look at Vedic stuff and it's like, yeah, there's the Devas and the Asuras, another race of gods. And then, like, you look at Germanic mythology and it's like, oh, there's the Aesir, which sounds slightly interestingly similar to Asura. And, you know, then there's these other sets of gods called the Vanir or the Wanes in some myths. In Nordic cosmology, there's like one line where they're talking about the war with the Wanes, which is the Vanir, and this other race, not the Aesir. And everyone's talking about the war, and Odin's like, but don't you guys remember, we're the ones that lost that war. It's like, oh, that's interesting. That's so interesting. I was like, what's with this war in heaven? What's with these two different races of gods? What's going on here? You know, some people, that maybe is horrific to them, and they're like, no, I just want to have a transcendental god. I want to get out. Perfectly fine. Other people, that's, I don't know. There's something there that, like, starts to make schizophrenic sense, and that's kind of what I like. I like looking at kind of stuff in that way. Anyway, I hope I answered that question properly. Another guy, if not, sorry. Next question. 2011 RGM on the community post asks, thoughts on Nibiru? Planet X? Nah, I don't really have any thoughts on it. Let me just see, is there any more questions? There's only one more by Scouse. What's your take on spiritual warfare? Yeah, it's real. You should probably, you know, learn. You should probably get into, I would recommend occultists at least have a cursory glance at parapsychology, and specifically Project Stargate, because it's like, in a lot of spiritual traditions, they have talk and even methods of attaining faculties and cities, but then they'll say, oh, don't focus on that. You shouldn't, that's just your ego. You just want powers. And it's like, bro, the CIA taught random personnel to, like, one-shot remote view, clairvoyance, and astrally project. What the hell are you doing not tapping into that? You know what I mean? So you should look into that stuff. Obviously, don't become too obsessed with it, because parapsychology and spiritual warfare, in the end, it lacks the same thing as, you know, people, there is still a lacking of a transcendental aim. And I find that's what a lot of people who get into spirituality through the psychology of it also miss. Like, they just see the subterranean, subconscious, this dysfunction, and subconsciousness is God. And yeah, I get it. But you're missing that there's also something transcendent. And, you know, That's another video I need to make. The psychologizing of spirituality and its consequences have been a disaster for the entire tradition. Anyway, Scouts has also asked, is Vril the same as Chi, etc.? Did Maria Orsic fly to Aldebaran on a spaceship? Thoughts on Austrian painter being Gnostic, possessed, etc.? Yeah, so, well, Vril is just a kind of an overlay concept. Chi and it is kind of the same as Qi and Chi. The problem with is in the systems of Qi and Chi, they're very elaborate, and there's different types of Qi and Chi. Let me answer this though about Maria Orsic and Aldebaran. I did a little bit of this in when I was studying for the second occult political compass fit. I studied the Vril Society bit, and yeah, I memed it up in the video. And I was thinking about making a video with my real opinion on it, but I guess I'll just answer. Maybe I'll make a video in the future, but here's my opinion on the Vril Society. So, I think Maria Orsic and a lot of that stuff, the Vril Maidens in particular, it's all a psyop, doesn't it? Never happened. Never happened. Now, what do we have historically? What we have historically is a lot of pamphlets from around that time, or at least one has survived. Nicholas Goodrich Clark has found that. There are pamphlets in German in the appropriate time period that talk about Vril. So secret societies did know about it or did have a concept of this energy. What society did definitely exist? When people talk about the Vril Society, they always mention that it arose from the Thule or the Thule Society. Okay, if the Vril is just the Thule, or the Thule, then therefore you would expect some of the Thule members to be in the Vril Society. Which ones went in there? Can we tell? Well, I wasn't there, so I can't tell, but you could probably deduce one of them, and that would be the founder of the Thule Society, friggin' Sebetendorf. Sebetendorf was the founder of the Thule Society. Sebetendorf was an esoteric mason, an alchemist, a Sufi. He did a bunch of stuff. You can read his works. And it's like, if he was the founder of the Thule Society, you have to imagine if there was a Vril Society, he would have been a member of it. He would have been a member of that inner core. Now, when you look up Sebetendorf on Wikipedia, what does it say about him? It says, oh yeah, he just unalived himself. Or he unalived himself and jumped into a river. Or maybe his superior officers did that to him, because he was a spy. And it's like, okay, that is a psyop. Wikipedia saying he unalived himself or his superior officers killed him is a little bit, because it's not in English sources, but I can't read Turkish or German, but Google translates a boss. If you look at Turkish and, because he was a spy in the Second World War, he did some spying in Turkey. If you look at Turkish sources and German sources on Sebetendorf, Google Translate those pages, there are sightings of him all through after the 1940s, all the way up to late 1960s. So he survived. What was he? He was a spy. What happened to all the spies in the German spy network in Eastern Europe after the Second World War? They all got integrated into the CIA. So if the Vril Society existed, it was a spy network. And two, if it existed, it definitely continued after the Second World War, and most likely continues nowadays and has branches in the US and in probably London. MI6 and the CIA have little cells, or cells as in there are, people in them that are of the Vril Society. And it's like, if you are a member of this secret organization that is a part of the intelligence community and you're an occultist, what's the thing you're going to do? The thing you're going to do is you're going to want to hide your origins as much as possible. How are you going to do that? One, destroy all of the pamphlets in Germany, which, oh no, we messed up. There's one got found. Nicholas Goodrich published it. Okay, what's the next thing you're going to do? Next thing you're going to do is you're going to make a hyper-schizophrenic story that people are going to latch onto. You're going to have Vril Maidens, you're going to have a psychic from outer space, you're going to have, it's about Aldebaran, and that's going to just detract everyone away from what actually happened. So that's my opinion. Sorry, Robert Sefer fans. I know, Vril Maidens, and they don't cut their hair and they're all psychic. Sounds super cool. Doubt. like hardcore doubt. From what I kind of found in that kind of area, it's like, you know, Nazi time travelers and, you know, all that kind of stuff. It gets so schizophrenic. But even when you pull back the schizophrenia, there's still data points. And if you don't ignore the data points, you kind of get another narrative popping up. And that other narrative is that the Vril Society was a spy network that was made of predominantly occultists. And they perpetuated into modern times and hid their origins at least. Because if you can't hide yourself, then you just got to make some stuff up to lead people astray. And that's what that is. So I don't really put much weight in the Maria Orsic thing. Sorry to disappoint. I think that's all of the community posts. I'll like put my iPad down. And now let's just go through some of these comments. We're an hour in, so I'll go through some of the comments and then we'll call it, eh? Let's see, Tyler. Looks like you already got your kiss. Can you see it on the side? Me and my wife were at a party the other day. She had some makeup on and just kind of forgot and just gave me a peck there. Not sure if you can see it. Would love to hear your opinion on raw material, the lore of one. Luna says Luna Love Light. I'm not big on channeled stuff. I'm not a fan at all. Very rarely is channeled stuff good. So I'm not. I don't want to say like it's bad because I haven't dived into it. But I'm not like, I don't want to just take a dump on something that I haven't read, but I'm very uninterested in channeled material. Because it's always been like, oh, I channel Saint Germain, I channel Melchizedek. Yeah, but who are you? Who are you, bro? Fuck me. I don't want to channel Melchizedek. I don't want to channel Saint Germain. I want to be Saint Germain. I want to become an immortal alchemist. That's what I want. So channeling has never interested me. Anything more than a cursory thing. Like channeling, you're connecting to an entity. Cool. Same with trance stuff. Trance stuff may be a good way to confirm certain occult things. But in the end, to use a Gurdjieff term, you're just shutting down the lower cylinders and pushing your essence into the higher cylinders, and your personality isn't necessarily receiving anything. You're not necessarily progressing, you're just kind of doing something weird. How about instead of like shutting down the lower cylinders and flying into the higher cylinders, how about you just connect the higher cylinders to the lower cylinders and just become a being that just has those powers always? Wouldn't that be neat? Anyway, it's my little critique there. Guilherme Reyes says, yes, Schizo Prophet. Demiurge and Matrix is less that they are in or out, but embedded in the framework and structure such that they exist. The threshold, sure. UFOlogy, when we say Matrix, we are just referring to the material universe, not a simulation theory, right? That's what I'm referring to. Jacobo Mendez. Damn it, Richard. When are you uploading the next part of the political compass? I'm halfway through. Okay? So this weekend I had to go for I had to travel for a family birthday, but I'll be back on the grind next weekend. But yeah. It's coming out. Another guy says, oh wait, I'm just looking through comments. Grant gets out, Tartaria stuff is fun if you don't get stuck in the thought that everything is false. Always just look for little nuggets. Exactly. Tartaria, i.e. budget Atlantis. Am I right? Aiden Schwabs asks, question, what do you think of the work of Carlos Castaneda? Love it. Here, I'm a big fan of what's the Three Sons? Just recently made not recently made, he's been around for a little while now, I guess, but Three Sons, great YouTube channel. Everyone go check it out and subscribe. He's bro. I like Carlos. The thing about Carlos is people, once again, he's like Samael Aun Weor in that way. It's like people either want him to be like, he's the greatest thing ever. Everything he said is truth. And then there's like other people who are like, no, he's clearly a fraud. And it's like, I'm in the middle. With Carlos, I think he's a creative genius. Like, I've heard the people be like, yeah, look, we did this literary study of Carlos's books, and the Yaqui Indians not only don't use peyote, but he doesn't even use yucky Indian terms properly or at all in his books. And what he does use, it seems that like Don Juan is a composite creation of like Wittgenstein and C.S. Lewis and all of these other kind of philosophers. Like there's one bit on like the bit in what is it, Separate Reality, about the eggs. All human beings are eggs. That's like from Ramacharaka and things like that. Ramacharaka mentions that. But I'm like, nah, dude. Carlos Castaneda is so good because it's a synthesis. Carlos was a creative genius, man, and he basically read a bunch of stuff. I think he did go into I think he did do some anthropology. He did go and meet some Indians or whatever. And I kind of have this feeling that he did have a master, but instead of revealing his master, he kind of cloaked his master in this guise. So Don Juan, there is something behind Don Juan that is real. But Don Juan in the book is a composite creation of maybe a real master, but also everything that Carlos has read and other, things from the Western tradition and all that kind of stuff. So, and it's like when you read those books, it's like, what is it? It's Don Juan saying something, Carlos reacting, and there's all these really rich lines of Carlos's internal worlds. Like, Don Juan said this, and I was chagrined and was sad, and then he noticed and made me laugh, and all these kind of things. But it's very interesting because there's this phenomenology that he goes through in the books, and once again, did the events exactly happen, or is it more important for the warrior philosophy and some of the esoteric stuff and like attention? And I genuinely like his stuff. I genuinely like them. I'm not a Castaneda head who's like it's all real. What are you talking about? But I'm also not a critic at all. Like I think they're great. I think people should still read them, still read those books even nowadays. Journey to Ixtlan is great. Highly recommend. Highly recommend. For anyone who hasn't read Carlos Castaneda, just jump into the third book, Journey to Ixtlan. You don't need to read the first two. The first two are they're right. They're right. But you just start with the third book, because the third book is when he kind of drops the drugs and just goes full esoteric, full sorcerer mode. Just goes full sorcerer pilled, Sigma male. Warrior, man of knowledge, and it's great. It's great stuff. Love it. Schizoprophet. I think people are like arguing over definitions in the chat. Ruari asks, do you ever feel like an alien in how you experience the world compared to others? It can be isolating seeing from a different perspective. Yeah. Frank Sunerson asks, which is your metaphysical foundation? Monism, dualism, pluralism, or something else? So here's the thing. I agree with monism, but I find people who go full monism to be completely fucking unbearable. And dualism, even though dualism isn't true, I find dualism useful as a ladder to climb to reach monism. So maybe I'm some kind of hybrid, but like maybe I use pluralism. I'm a pluralistic panpsychist. That's maybe describe me as something like that. But then there's like eventually it all reaches a monadic realm where everything's one at the very top. But we're not at the top. We're in the shit. So it's not useful to be like, oh, it's all one. Just be. Like that, I've never found that to be useful at all. Schizoprophet says, Crowley is hilarious, but it's pretentious. I mean, I really liked the book for Stephen Skinner stuff because his commentary is hilarious. Stephen Skinner, if you know who that is, if you've heard him, he's like this really dry, like spoken person, and then Crowley is incredibly bombastic in his language, and the juxtaposition, and also Stephen Skinner he's very dry and like has this monotone voice, but he like has this very snide, snarky humor, dry humor. So when it's like Crowley's being ultra pretentious, and then it's Stephen Skinner in like the footnotes will just say something really dry and sarcastic, and it's literally reading book 4, Stephen Skinner translation, is like a hilarious comedy. Just like going through it makes you laugh out loud. It's hilarious. So next one, Jeff Phillips. Are you into Mark Passio at all? No, I don't know who that is. I'm sorry, bruh. North Seeker Adventurers. Based? Yes. Martial esotericist. Oh, so everyone's. I think. God, how many questions are in the chat? Have you read Jung's Aeon? Says Gamer Master. Nah, I haven't, man. I'm only one man. I can't read everything. I would love to one day. Any thoughts on the relationships between Jung's ideas and occultism in general? Yes, they are useful. I think there is a critique, though. I think Jung is very pertinent for esotericism, especially active imagination. The practice of active imagination is basically very similar to path working, which I think is great. And people who start off doing scrying should definitely move into path working. But and you can use active imagination as a bridge. My critique of Jung is, when he's talking about individuation and alchemy, and he's saying alchemists did this. I think alchemists didn't do individuation. Alchemists were already people who were individuated, and the alchemical process is something greater, something else. So I think it's more of a, but that's not necessarily a hard disagreement. It's more just like the goalpost. I shift farther forward than he did. But yeah, look, Freud and Jung both impacted the occult world very significantly. But Freud definitely has way more hang-ups than Jung did. Jung, at the same time, it's useful to read, but he himself was also limited by the fact that he wanted to be accepted by the scientific community. So he crushes himself into that box continuously. And so you gotta kind of make do. Some people are really into Jung and they go through a Jung phase and like, yeah, go for it. I don't have anything that bad to say about Jung in the end. It's like, yeah, just go for it, man. Bernardo Kastrup, read his book. Yeah. Another guy, thoughts on chaos magic. Also, have you read Blue Flake's works? People on X either think it's ass or it's aight. No, I haven't read Blue Flakes. I'll have to look that up. Thoughts on chaos magic? I mean, it's good. It's an eclectic system. For me, chaos magic, whenever I look at it, I always find it funny in that community because people who get into it, they get into it for the eclectic nature, like do one thing and then paradigm shift. And it's like there's something higher in them that doesn't want them to do that. And so they paradigm shift, and they'll paradigm shift into like Zen Buddhism, but then go, oh, this is actually amazing, and then just stay there and just stay in Zen Buddhism for years. So I think it's good. Yeah, I think it's good for people to, if they do it correctly, paradigm shift off and go into some place, test a bunch of different paradigms out, get that perspectivism going. But I don't feel like there's any pure chaos magic people out there, because people who do pure chaos magic inevitably find a paradigm that kind of just suits them and they just stick with it. And then most people who don't do that, it's because they're not really doing chaos magic that well, to be perfectly honest. Yeah, that's what I think about that. Schizo Prophet asks, what do you know of Manichaeism? Not enough. Frank Susanen, there was a naked boy caught with Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane in the Gospel of Mark. Oh, okay, that's what that. Yeah, I don't know, bruh. If maybe that's like alchemical and symbolic. This is also like the other thing is like, look, I use the Bible as way more of a metaphor or a kind of a magical tome than any stories. If I'm gonna take any story literally about Jesus, I'm way more likely to take the Gnostic stories. Because it's like, main Bible, like, it's good. It's good stuff. Read the Gospels, read some Psalms, the magical spells, maybe in the Solomon's Song of Songs, you get some special alchemical, sexual magic stuff going on. It's great. But I'm not hard on, like, this thing happened in this book, therefore I'm going to make it the foundation of everything. It's like, whatever. So I kind of don't have opinions on that stuff. Northseeker Adventures asks, sounds like theosis. Oh, okay. No, wait. Seven Rise asks, have you ever heard of Frank Keppel? Thoughts on him if you have? No, I haven't, bruh. Mark Passio gets a mention again. I think I've heard like a lot of these names, but I just, once again, I'm just one boy. I can't read it all. Meme Analysis was the first to introduce me into the occult and magic. He's heavily into the tarot, says Marshall Esotericist. Meme Analysis is a cool guy. He's a Crowley/Jung guy as well. He's very interesting. Hey, Outtuition is in here. Howdy. Is there something to being bald, growing your hair out to max length that actually helps one become more psychic or intuitive, so to speak? Nah. I mean, some people really like. I think for women, long hair has more of a place. But for dudes, I don't know, maybe growing a long beard or something. There's something about hair, like it does have an esoteric quality, but I don't know, if you're going bald, it doesn't, going bald or have long hair, it's like, it is what it is. It is what it is. Kona Clan donated $4.99. Thank you, Kona. I keep seeing the number 33 everywhere. What does number 33 mean? What is it linked to? Well, Kona, if you're still in here, number 33 is linked to initiation. Hence, the Masons use the number 33. But it's, 3 times 3 is 9, which 9 is the number of initiation as well. But it's said that, 33 is the number of vertebrae in the human spine. So initiation, when it moves up the spine, it has 33 degrees, so to speak. There's a little esoteric thing with that. That's where that esoteric thing lies. So 33 is interesting. I mean, what is initiation as well? It's the higher connecting with the lower. So making an alliance with the lower, if you will. So there's a connection there. There's maybe something important that's going on. Seeing number, and once again, this is also another call. Seeing numbers everywhere. Don't get too schizophrenic, bros. Don't get too schizophrenic with numerology. Trust me. But yeah, if you're seeing it everywhere, look, could just mean start looking into initiation. Try to find out more about it. Double down on some esoteric practices that you're doing. If you're meditating, try doubling, your time or something. Lucas Ligma in the chat. Lucas Ligma asks, are you enlightened or just bald? Just bald, bro. Just bald. You either look like Jesus or look like Buddha when you become bald, yes. I think I'm going for a Buddha. Man, people just, Bobby and Two Crows. Hey, what about Part 3 Political Compass? Occult Secret Society. What about that? I keep telling everyone I'm halfway through. I'm getting there. So God isn't the stairs or the steps of the stairs. He's the stone or the wood they're made of. He is the stairs and the steps and the stone and the wood. And he's also in you. It's like, in those old Kabbalistic texts where you, move through a bunch of heavenly palaces, and then at the end, there's a throne with God on it, but it's like a man, and there's either no head, or it's like your face on the kind of the throne. It's something like that. Frank Sissonen says, Panentheists be like, the observable universe is the left nut of God. Why are they like this? Hey, man, Panentheism is cool. They say it's the left nut of God because that's what the Vril is, and we're creative. We're in a process of becoming, Oh, Outtuition says, at my work, I got my hands on a 1960s third-degree Masonic Holy Bible that included illustrations of Solomon's Temple. It was very interesting, to say the least. Yeah, cool. At your work, do you work in a bookstore? Are you a librarian, bro? You wanna send me some stuff? Another guy asks, do you personally think stuff like astral projection, etc., would be able to give the required knowledge for the user to keep progressing? So no books and stuff. Look, a lot of people say, you get to a point you need no books. Keep learning from books all throughout your life, because even if you don't need to learn from books, hey, what is a novel? A novel is someone's psychology, in a sense, or knowledge, depending on who it is. Like someone, like a master like Rumi or William Blake, or Shakespeare, what he represents in his plays is nature itself reflected onto the page. And it's like there's esoteric stuff in there. It can be enriching, always, to connect to those people through time, through the works that they've placed. But, never give up on your own intuitions, your own psychic experiences, your own astral projections. I feel like people are always one or the other. It's like, you need to do this book learning, bro. You need to do this book learning. Or it's like, once you get astral projection going, you just go to the Temple of the Masters, man. You never need to read again. It's like, no, you do everything. You triangulate in between all of those things. I've become more and more skeptical also of knowledge gained through certain astral experiences and visions over the years. Once again, it can be useful, but it's like, I find people who try to make a system for others out of visions and astral projections always, there's a wall you kind of hit. You need to read literature. There's a tradition in the world. Find the tradition, connect to it. And it's like, your astral projections and your visions, they're more for you, not for other people in the end. That's what a lot of those teachings end up being. Oh, Schizoprophet asks, have you seen content by Galahad Eridanus? Yes, I have. He's based. That stuff is so good. I want to know how he does his editing. It's so good. His stuff is so good. He's an interesting dude as well. Very interesting dude. He's very intuitional. Hey, for people who don't know him, go check out his channel. Go check Galahad Eridanus. He has some weird kind of videos, but he's a Gnostic, quote unquote, but I think he's dipped into Steiner, and he's using a lot of Steiner's kind of cosmology and teaching to like reframe a lot of his own experiences and a lot of his own intuitions. But he's a cool dude. He's a cool dude. Bobby Crows. Callum in the chat. Who's the most based saint? There's one saint whose story is like, he used to be a bandit, and then he, I think all of his crew got killed or something, and he escaped and went to a church and was like sick and dying, and the priest healed him, and then he just stayed there as one of the monks in that like abbey. And he basically just kind of stayed there and like just became a monk and just became really religious. And he kind of kept his bandit sword, and there's like some story where other bandits or people come and they start burning down the like monastery that they're at. And everyone's in a panic, and he's just, by then he's an old man, but he just gets out his old bandit sword and it's just like, shoo, everyone go up the back, I'll deal with this. And it's like, he basically did a last man standing by himself as an old man with his old sword in a burning temple, basically fighting off bandits so the rest of his monks could escape. And all of them escaped except him. And so they were like, it's a miracle that he was able to fight off like 50 dudes by himself in a burning church. He's a saint. They made him a saint for that. And I'm like, man, I don't know if that's like a miracle. Like, he didn't put, that's like not a magic miracle or anything, but that's freaking based. Holy shit. That's a crazy story. Can't remember his name. I just remember the story. But whoever that guy is, that's the most based saint. Lucas Ligma, you got all this knowledge and I'm just here raw dogging meditation. By telling myself to shut up every 2 minutes. That's how it starts, bruh. That's how it starts. With meditation, it's all just... The best description I ever got of meditation is like, your mind is like a silk cloth that just got flopped on a rose bush. You can't just rip it off. You got to just like, very gently, like thorn by thorn, pull the fabric off without damaging the fabric. And that's what it is. It's like, you sit down, you stare at that candle. And I'm going to stare at this candle for 20 minutes. And then like 1 minute in, you're staring in the corner of the room, thinking about like fighting space marines on the planet Zog or some bullshit. And then you just bring yourself back to the candle. You go, oh, whatever. I got distracted, whatever. And you just go back to the candle. And then it happens again, a couple of minutes later, and you just bring yourself back to the candle. And it happens again, and you just keep bringing yourself back. And then eventually what you start to notice is the time that you spend fantasizing actually decreases. And eventually you kind of get to this point where it's like you're breathing and your attention is there. And you can see yourself slipping off the counter. You just bring yourself back. And you see yourself slipping, you just bring yourself back, and you just... And then eventually, like this separation happens. And then the thing inside you that thinks thoughts separates from the thing that observes. And it's hard to describe this because I can just describe it to you like that. And you can be like, yeah, I know what you mean. But like actually experiencing that is different. It hits different because when you experience that, it's like creepy as fuck. Because it feels like there is a person inside you that has been thinking your thoughts your entire life. And everything that you think, everything that you like, and everybody that you hate, you don't actually hate. It's this thing inside you that thinks that. And it's like, it feels weird, bruh. But that happens. That happens when you do it enough and when you do it long enough. And yeah, I'd say you don't need to like get to like that high of an octave, but like you kind of, that's, you know, you're building this collective attention, and then, you know, you're supposed to close your eyes and then soak that into your body and start the energy work. That's how you progress from there. But really, all other forms of meditation, you know, all mantras, you know, different mental tricks, breathing techniques, all of that is just machinery to help you get to this point of negation. That's all it is. It's just kind of tricks to help you get to this point where it's just, you just sit. And most people can't do that, so you kind of need to do the tricks. And then eventually the tricks kind of help you, and then you just let the tricks go, and you can you just sit. And you just get into it, and then you're able to internalize, and the fluid of the mind soaks into the body, and you can just do the energy work. People saying based a bunch, schizoprophet. In my opinion, St. Augustine of Hippo in his work on if he or she is a Christian. Okay. Based Platonist. What is that on your head? What do you mean on my head? I got sunburnt a little bit. Maybe it's my halo. My hair. Titans got mogged, says out tuition. Angel of Death. This is very well said. Vinara Veneer. Thank you, Angel of Death. Another guy. And it's funny to think these motherfuckers from Olympus are considered good. Yeah, I know, right? No, right. I mean, Zeus made it. Schizoprophet says, I mean, Zeus made his father a eunuch. And then his siblings spilled out. Weird. So I'm just reading the chat now. The Titans were Giga Chads. Lamau. Captain Barnacles, but these would all be gods with a small g. Exactly. Hermetic principles lay out the one that seems to make the most... Yeah. I agree, Captain Barnacles. Marion Anderson. What is that on your hand? This is a LifeWave patch that my wife put on. She knows what it's about. I'm just like, yes, give me the medicine. It's like, I think it's a homeopathic thing. It's like she also has this thing where it's like you get vibrations and you put it in a glass of water or something and you drink the water and it makes you healthy. It's like with this, it's like you put a vibration or 430 hertz vibration in it and then just stick it to you for a day or something. Schizoprophet, you got to ask her about that. Schizoprophet, just like how the poetic Eddas mankind are trees. Spiritual warfare. Oh, hello. Mark Soltsets. That's an interesting name. Hello, sir. I'm currently trying to gain knowledge. I watched your video about what should be the first steps. I'm doing the candle concentration for a while now. Based. Yeah. Very based. I should, make an update video about that as well. Another guy says, also about toppling the demiurge, new gen Gnostics seem to really love the idea of battling the demiurge and shit. It's kind of funny. Yeah, some people get overhyped. Get in, losers, we're gonna fight the demiurge. The only way to win is to stop playing the same game. Is it, though? Is it? I think it's like, you just gotta, when they check you, you just play an Uno reverse card and then draw 4. And then when they try to draw for you, then you you whip out the royal flush. You just keep switching up on them. You just got to keep them guessing. Oof, I may have contributed to the psychologizing of the occult. I mean, hey, people got to sort out their psychology. But the thing with the psychologizing is, psychology is important, but it's not the spirit. It's like you got to get your psychology in order, but that doesn't make you spiritual. Like, it's like you can't be a complete loser and a wreck and be an initiate. But at the same time, no amount of shadow work is gonna, make you an ascended master, bro. Like, it's not gonna happen. No amount of psychoanalyzing, your dad's pee-pee is gonna give you magical powers or something. Psychology has its place. If you're a dysfunctional person and you get into magic, it's probably gonna make you more dysfunctional. So you got to work that out. But fixing dysfunction itself isn't the goal. For some people it may be, and it's like, oh, it helped me, and I'm like, good for you, good for you. But I'm not after getting a loser and making them normal. I want to know what makes a normal person into a superhuman. That's my shtick, and that's when you read the occultists of old, that's what they want to know as well. Anyway. Mark Solets, how do I pronounce your name, Mark? Soltes. I also heard you talk about people who should learn about psychology first. What should the next steps, the books you recommend, and just go somewhere from there? What resonates with me? Something that resonates with you. Okay. I mean, yeah, get your psychology organized. I'd say learn meditation. Learn some Raja Yoga. I am a big fan of my big three is Eliphas Levi, Franz Hartmann, and Dion Fortune. But you should probably do some kind of energy work. That's a cultivation of energy, internal alchemy, if you will. And for that, I would Qigong, look into Qigong, look into Neigong. That area is, those guys have it par excellent. I would say something like yoga or Kundalini yoga, but because of the new age, and they've just ruined everything. Can you type Kundalini online and you find people like shoving quartz crystals up their butthole and doing weird stuff, and it's like, no, I don't trust anyone who says they have the Kundalini nowadays. But just Qigong, there's what yoga went through, Qigong is just beginning to go through, but there still is some good stuff online. I think using the terms like Nidan or Neigong, and then avoiding the stuff that's visualization heavy, and just focusing on the stuff that talks about the process. Actually, you know what? I'll say it here. If you want to learn meditation, there's 3 books that I would say you should get. Get the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, get The Secret of the Golden Flower, and get The Cloud of Unknowing. Those are 3 completely separate traditions. One, Yoga Sutras, that's the yogic tradition. One, Secret of the Golden Flower. Secret of the Golden Flower comes from Taoist alchemy, and it's the first text historically that talks about the process as an internal process, not just an external alchemical process. And then the 3, Cloud of Unknowing, that's from the Christian tradition. It's esoteric Christianity par excellence. And those 3 books are completely different from each other, but via reading them and keeping them as your bedside books, via contrast, not comparison. When you compare things, it never really works out. By contrasting the differences, not comparing the similarities, a secret fourth thing, I guess, because there's 3 books, is derived out of them. And you kind of get like, oh, okay, that you get something out of them. Like from the Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, it can help, understand the mechanics of the mind, and you can start a kind of a basic practice. The Secret of the Golden Flower focuses more on the energetic side and what happens when you kind of fix your psychology and then move along the process energetically. And the Cloud of Unknowing has this more transcendental side to it, but it also talks about images and what to use and what not to use, and how do you know you're not just being deceived, which, if it's not Satan, it's your own ego. How do you know you're not just projecting, like you desired something so much, you created an experience, your subconscious created it for you, and you just want to, and it's not something real or substantial. How do you know? And it's like, those three books are interesting because they're three completely different traditions, and it can be hard reading them the first time because it's like if you're not a part of the Taoist tradition, you read The Secret of the Golden Flower, you're like, what the hell is this shit? It's like, there's one, I think Jung's got a commentary for that. Also, Julius Evola has a commentary. Get Introduction to Magic Volume 2. And I think at the back of that, Evola has a commentary for The Secret of the Golden Flower, where he like dunks on Jung. It's pretty funny. But like, yeah, there's that stuff is useful. And once again, this is for creating a base. Fix your psychology. Learn an introspective exercise. If you want to go Western internal alchemy, there's something coming out. We got the freaking kerning exercises coming out. There is some skullduggery scholarship being done, and my PP is rock hard. The Pan Sofa movement, you can kind of look them up. There is basically a traditional Western alchemical lineage that has survived, that actually comes from, like, has a legitimate lineage that has actually survived till this very day. And so people have kind of found it, and they've just started kind of translating some texts, and things have just started coming out. But look up Alois Mailander, look up Kerning, look up Sam Robinson and the Pan Sofa movement. They're nice guys, and that stuff's really, I'm really excited for that. Like, oh my god, I'm super excited for that. But yeah, just books. Those are kind of books I would recommend. If you want to go Eastern, probably safe bet go more Taoist. If you want to go Western, maybe look up this Kerning, Alois Mailander lineage. Look for those three books: Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, Secret of the Golden Flower, and of course, Cloud of Unknowing. And if you just want to do magic, LFS Levy, Franz Hartmann, Dion Fortune. They're just, they're kind of all you need. I mean, you can do some Barden, you can try Crowley, you can try Regardie. But with those three are an interesting triangulation as well. Like LFS Levy's from France, Franz Hartmann is from Germany, and Dion Fortune is from England. So you kind of get this triangulation between those different Rosicrucian traditions. There's the Germanic Rosicrucian tradition. Like Franz Hartmann was a part of the Alois Mailander group. And then you have Levy with his secret French occultism. And then, of course, you got Fortune with the British occultists come in and clutch there. And if I was to start a magic school, I would probably use those texts and go in that direction, or have that as a curriculum, basically. That's my take on that. And I rambled off. I hope I kind of answered your question there. I rambled for a little too much there. Just going through. Cellular biology has been a rabbit hole. It's interesting. Hey, Mark, says Tyler. Dion Fortune's Psychic Self-Defense is a good intro into parapsychology and protection. Okay. That's one of the only books by Dion Fortune I haven't read. I got to get around to reading that soon. Chud Thundercock in the chat. I'm not sure. I think he's talking to someone else, though. Tuition. All I know is ghosts have something to do with an individual's electricity, energy, location, and some mechanism creating a snapshot of life, kind of like a groove in a vinyl record, I guess. Yeah, I agree. I think that. Operation Paperclip. Don't forget Mossad, says Tyler. I guess that was for the Vril part I was talking about. Unfathomably based. 1+ in the chat. Hello. Perhaps this is a redundant question, but I'm trying to learn more of Esoterica and Occult. Are there any good texts you'd recommend for beginners? Well, I just had a full schizophrenic breakdown there of what I'd recommend as a curriculum. So hopefully you are still in the chat there, still watching 1+. I hope you got that. What's your definition of schizophrenic? Meme. Someone who watches too many memes. Chud Thundercock, what's your opinion on direct energy weapons? I don't have an opinion, Chad. Chud? Oh, Seba asks, what's your favorite history topic? The Roman Empire. No, actually, for reals? I actually just like studying secret societies, so that was, kind of how I got into this. So, studying secret society, and I was like, what are these Freemasons doing? What are Rosicrucians? Huh? And then, like, you just kind of trip over and naked into the garden bed of carrots, and now you're gay. And that's like, boom, that's just how I, that's how I came to the occult. My favorite history topic, that's hard because I like all kind of, I like learning things I didn't know about. So it's not like, like learning about the Spartans is interesting. It's like, yeah, I like learning about that. And then when I see something about the Maya, I'm like, ooh. And then it's like, oh, you see something about, Russia, occult Russia. And it's like, ooh. I gravitate to the occult things, and then tangentially I learn the history around them. And that's how I've kind of come to history. But history just on itself, this is my problem, because things on their own, that meme where it's just like thing Japan, and it's like, that's me with the occult. I'm just like history occult, like, the anything occult really. That's just my jam. So I know it's not just, there's not just one thing I like in that sense. Amaron Anderson says, how do you connect higher and lower cylinders? That's the work, baby. That's the work. That is the knowledge and conversation with the holy guardian angel. That is awakening consciousness. That is the consciousness and the subconsciousnus connecting via a bridge. Individuation style. That's everything. That's what we're trying to do. That's the conjunctio of the alchemist. When you look at the process of I gotta remember the 7 steps. Was it calcination is the first one? What's the next one after that? I think putrefaction is kind of last. Because it's not there's nigrido, albedo, citrine, and the rubido, but then there's the 7 steps. And the 4th one is conjunctio, and that's the important one actually, because the conjunctio is the conjunction between the higher and the lower. So the sword of Arthur in the Grail Mysteries is broken, and that sword is repaired. That is the conjunctio. So now that you have your consciousness and your subconsciousness have fused together, or the thing that was transcendental in you, that was lost within you, has been recovered from the subconsciousness and is now conscious. So instead of having a schizophrenic break in you where there's 2 things, there's you and an other you, there's memory and an other memory, now there's just this one thing. It's no longer you and God, there's a secret 3rd thing. And like, that's what we're trying to get, JP asks, Jordan Peterson? JP asks, silly question maybe. Should you read esoteric texts, typically texts of Western literary canon, before reading esoteric texts, or is it better to read esoteric texts before reading exoteric texts? That's an interesting question. My take on that actually is, my education was free. So if you went to university and you're an academic and you can just go back to read primary texts, go for it, bruh. I found it originally difficult to read primary texts. So what I did is I started with esoteric literature and had a practice. And then I worked back in time, like, who did Eliphas Levi read? And then I'm like, oh, Francis Barat, the Magus. And I was like, who did he read? Oh, Heinrich Agrippa. Who did Heinrich Agrippa read? Oh, Picatrix. Where did the Picatrix come from? Oh, it was Greek magical papyri, Islamic tradition, Neoplatonism. And then I arrived at philosophy. But it's like, if you already have that foundation, you can kind of just read the primary texts and then come to the esoteric texts. But it's like, I kind of did it backwards, but that helped me in a sense because I didn't have the education. So reading someone like Dion Fortune, who's closer to us in time, is just easier for me. And then, reading Eliphas Levi as someone who's a little bit backwards in time. And, there's a language barrier. Dion Fortune was English, so there's no translations. It's just direct. Eliphas Levi was French. There's a translation. You have to rely on that. And then further back on time, it's not just further back in time, but you just have to rely on translations. Or translations of Latin texts or ancient Greek texts, and it becomes harder. I would love to learn Latin. I think I would love to learn Italian and Greek. I would love to learn Italian just to read Evola in his native tongue, and then I'd love to learn like Spanish just to read Miguel Sereno in his native tongue, so I can understand what the hell he's talking about. Maybe reread some Jorge Luis Borges in his original as well. That would be great. Love my Borges. love to learn Greek and read up because I'm going through a bit of a philosophy phase at the moment. But I'd love to read Kostas Axelos. He's a left-wing Heideggerian, very interesting guy. But his stuff, I think his stuff is French. So what I got, even though he's Greek, he wrote in French. So I'm like, fuck, do I have to read French? But then I'd love to go back. I'd love to read Latin because a lot of the alchemical texts from medieval times are all in Latin. But then, of course, you go ancient Greek, and then you can get the Neoplatonists. You can read Plotinus without any. You can read Iamblichus without the filter of like a materialist scholar being like, theology doesn't exist. You can just read Iamblichus. Like, that would be amazing. Ugh. Anyway, so now I'm just fantasizing and rambling now. Tyler Courtney. JP, read both. Exactly. Another guy asks, Richard, do you have any personal objectives after achieving consciousness and escaping? Maybe, I don't know, exploring other worlds, or I don't know, just chill for eternity? Yeah. Well, here's the thing. It's like when you escape if you escape and leave the world, what's there? I don't know. So it would be cool. I mean, maybe there's stuff out there that's just crazy amazing, or maybe you become the demiurge creator of another world. Like, maybe that's what's up. I don't know. But I'm skeptical of people who say you can do it kind of in one life. Like, there are other beings in the universe, bro. They're like planetary intelligences, and not just planetary intelligences. There are intelligences that govern the entire solar system. And then there's ones that govern entire galaxies. And then is there one that governs the entire universe, or like multiple galaxies? Like, what the hell is up with them? When people say I'm going to escape, or I'm going to gain absolute enlightenment, or gain the absolute, you're basically jumping over all of those levels and states of being. And so it's like, can you actually do that? Or do you become some kind of hybrid thing that can move through different levels of creation or something? Like, what's it actual like? We're all, as we're here now as humans in our human bodies, bound by time and space, as we are beings trapped in time, we've got kind of limited knowledge on the actual game being played. Maybe, I think, if I escape, I'd kind of like to come back, not for all of humanity. I find that kind of gay, but I would definitely like to come back with all of my memories intact and help a couple of people, because I know I suffered a lot, being raised in a materialist paradigm, and as a kid. And it's like, it just was so dry. I hated it. And so when I first found out like that there are actually crazy people who believe magic is real and like translate ancient texts and then just try to do the rituals, I was like pee-pee throbbing and just dived right into it. So I would love to come back with all my memories intact and like, I don't know, start a secret society. Like, find someone, because I know there must be people also like me, or people who suffer in that way, and I want to help them. Like, the recovering alcoholic, then the person who recovers from alcoholism, like then goes and helps people who are alcoholics. I want to recover from materialized nature and then go back into materialized nature and then like help a couple of other people, help a brother out. Like, I'm not doing a bodhisattva vow for all of humanity, and I'm gonna be the last one in the absolute. I'm gonna help all beings. I'm nowhere near at that level. I'm not going to admit. If I say that, I just feel fake. Going to be TBH, to be honest, bruh. I just feel fake whenever I like try to force that emotion for a large group of people. I'm like, nah, it ain't me. I'm a cruel, cold arhat in a world of bodhisattvas. That's what's up. And so, but I do feel for some people. So I'd come back. I'd come back for a couple people. And then maybe I'd just isekai myself into another world. That would be great. Because this one, I'm very displeased with this one. This world, I'm very displeased. At least with this time period as well. Like, oh god, ruined. Every time I hear about like ancient societies, I'm like, oh, it should have been me. Anyway, and it's like, you would have been born a peasant, maybe. I mean, the rights of Ulysses, they allowed everybody of all cultures not all cultures, they allowed everybody of all classes to be members. In old Freemasonry days, you could get like, the King of England or, aristocrats next to, the woodcutter from down the street. The festive board, that was all Gucci. Nowadays in this Kali Yuga degenerate time, it's maybe that's just my thing. I just have like Atlantean blues. I'm just thinking back to the old days while I'm in the Kali Yuga. It's just giving me that vibe. Maybe that's what's up. Northern Secret Adventures says, what's the best way to find occult groups that are in person? So this is so freaking hard. And this is what I ended up doing for a while. So the thing with occult groups is this. You find them online and then you email them and you get no response. Or there's the ones that you email and you get an immediate response and they're like, yeah, and then they just send you a bunch of flyers and maybe a practice. And then they're like, yes, you can open up a center here. And it's almost like a McDonald's arization of esoterica. It's like, this is a grand tradition with things all over the world. And then you kind of have the sneaking suspicion that it's just other random dudes that this guy has like sold a bunch of like stuff to, and then it's not actually a worldwide organization. And it's so for me, what I say is basically, I would highly recommend. I used to say use Meetup, but they've like jacked up their prices so high. I'm like disgusted for reals. But like, I don't know, on Facebook, do something. Try to start a Meetup. Maybe use Meetup. Maybe use another app or a site for starting groups. Because people start yoga fucking groups all the time. You got to make your own. You got to do your own esoteric order with blackjack and hookers. No, but without start a group just for reading esoteric literature. Like start a Dion Fortune reading group in your city, and you'll be surprised at how many people come. Try it over Zoom or do like I did a Gurdjieff reading group at one point. I was like reading Bill's Bob's Tales. Like come to my apartment, and like random people came, and one guy came who was a part of the actual Gurdjieff group of the city I was in, and was like, hey, you want to come to the actual group? And I was like, oh, I would have never found them because they didn't advertise online. It was just like you had to know a dude. And so I would have never have found those guys if I didn't start that group. And so you have a lot of other things like, self-initiation and things like that. Try the self-initiation, go, if you want to go Golden Dawn, get like Israel Regade's Golden Dawn tome and then like read the temple lectures and try to articulate them in a way, make a lecture on them. Go to your local Theosophical Society and be like, hey, I'm interested in giving a lecture. So like I'm in the city I'm in, I like randomly every now and then they call, because they know me now, they like call me up and like, can you give a lecture? Like I'm just kind of like known as like this random guy who gives random lectures at the Theosophical Society in my city. And it's like, yeah, and from that, at the moment so I kind of had a group at one point where I was just kind of giving random, I was giving Latin, or I shouldn't say random lectures, I was giving lectures, I was giving a certain cycle of lectures I was going through and doing things here and there, but for me, my life just got really busy, and I got married and stuff like that. So I just kind of had to end my groups, and now I think I can't even give many talks at the Theosophical Society now. So for me, it just became hard. It just became my life like filled up. But if you're looking for groups, I really recommend finding a group and working with it. There's always the chance of getting psyoped into a cult, but don't go in expecting that you're going to find Saint Germain. Go in expecting that they're all a little bit weird. Go in expecting that, and it's like, go in expecting that these guys are assholes, but they have knowledge that I need. And going in that way teaches you a set of tools. And in that way, meditating in a group does help. It really does. It holds you accountable. And like in one group I was a part of, it's like, they just kind of cool general lectures, and then it kind of became a meditation group. And then after a while, they did actually have this kind of theurgic ritual that they did on like the 27th of every month, and that you can get invited to, but like, invite only kind of thing. And it's like, yeah, okay. So you kind of, that's how I would say find them, start your own of your interest that you're into, and you'll be surprised at who finds you, kind of, you know what I'm saying? So like the Theosophists, they're nice, but Theosophy isn't my shtick. So I still give lectures there every now and then. And, the Gurdjieff group, that guy who ran it was interesting. I'm still actually in contact with the guy who came to my original, my reading group of Gurdjieff. Yeah, we're good friends. But and yeah, and then there's like another guy I know who came to my classes, and like he always supports me, comes to my theosophical talks, and yeah, we hang out every now and then. It's like there's this group that like is waiting to kind of be coagulated. I just got to do something about it in my area. There are hot Gnostic singles in my area, and I need to get us all together. I need to start something. I really do. Ugh. But anyway, I'm a busy boy. I'm a busy boy. I just rambled there. God damn, we're 2 hours in. I need to get through these. I need to get through these messages. How are there 32 people just listening to me, like, just basically whack off? Northern Seeker Adventures says, "What's the best way to find a?" Yeah, no, I just did that. Ines Paradis asks, "Hi, what is your favorite Christian sect? I was raised Roman Catholic, but I recently found Orthodoxy, and it makes so much more sense." Yeah, if I was Christian, I'd probably go Roman Orthodox, and then I just secretly. I don't think it's necessarily about the sect you're in. Like, even Protestants, Protestant churches are cringe, but every now and then Protestant study groups, you'll like find a guy who's into Swedenborg, or you'll find a guy who's into William Blake, or even you'll find a guy who's into Gurdjieff. And it's like those are the places I would say you want to go. You want to find, if it's a Bible study group, great. If it's a Christian sect, great. But you want to find someone that's not just have faith and be a good person. That's lame. You want to find someone you want to find a sect, a group that has a praxis, whether it be the Cloud of Unknowing or whether it be Saint Ignatius of Leota's spiritual exercises or whatever. They're doing it, or they're practicing, or they're studying something like Swedenborg. Hey, go for it. And it's like just, they're reading mystics, they're reading Meister Eckhart, they're open to that stuff. That's what you want. That's what you're looking for. So I can't believe you haven't read every single occult book ever written. What the fuck, dude? I'm trying. Think about it. Says, have you read The Cult of the Black Cube? No, that's the one that came out. That looks hot, though. That looks hot. I know a guy who's read it. He said it was good. It's just a bunch of essays. And I was like, okay. There's Rose says hi. Another guy says based. Akash Sadhu says, you're cute, bro. Love you, Akash. When you splinter your mind into components. She's casting What magical system do you practice, if you do any? In the words of William Blake, I had to create my own system or risk being enslaved by another man's. But my influences are, Dion Fortune, Levy, Agrippa, those kind of guys. Those kind of guys. That's my ceremonial magic style, I guess. If you want to call it that. Jesus is the wind, says Dylan. Yes. Is your wife air with your esoteric ordeal? Says another guy. I think you're asking, is my wife down? Yeah, she's esoteric as well. She's doing her own stuff. You are so sassy and I love it, says Akash. Thank you, Akash. Jesus magic through prayer. Thoughts on the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram. What is it meant to do? What is it meant to do? It's meant to sort out the elements in your area. What I personally, because I've read Levy, I just use the conjuration of the four. You conjure the four archangels, and they're also the four elements. Like, look up the conjuration of the four via LFS Levy. It's basically does the same thing as the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, but you don't have to do any gay hand movements and gay turns and anything gay. You're just straight the entire time. And that's what I like. Another guy, awaken your Kundalini in 3 days with this 99 hertz audio. Lyranos says, I have a straining problem with determinism. To what extent does the will impact the universe and the universe the will? Is there hierarchy or wills of wills? Can one expand their will to win over the universe? So yeah. So the thing with the will is it's not that free will exists or doesn't exist, it's that it's a slider. It's like there is free will and you don't have it. Most things in life we don't do, things happen to us. So here's the shtick. There's a line from Schopenhauer where he says something like, the will can will anything, but the will can't will it the will. And you hear that and you go like, wait, what? What? Like, goddamn philosophers and their incoherence. But the will can will anything, but the will can't will the will. What does that mean? Schope gives us an example, and he gives this example, I'm going to paraphrase it a little bit. He says, imagine like a guy who is sent to prison, but like unjustly. So, his wife betrayed him, or his best friend, framed him or something like that. So, but imagine the injustice that you'd feel if, like, your wife was like, he's beating me, and you're like the best husband ever, and then, like, it turns out she's sleeping with your best friend, and you get sent to prison. So you're in a jail cell, and you're in a jail cell unjustly. Schopenhauer says if the will could will the will, then that man who's in that prison cell unjustly, he could will himself to desire being in prison for the rest of his life, and he could sit in the jail cell in absolute bliss. And when Schopenhauer says this, he uses this example as something to show that it's like ludicrous. So of course the will can't will the will. But when I read that, I was like, hey, yo, I bet the Buddha could do that. I bet the Buddha could do that. And so it's like, yeah, man. I think this is the problem. We have our consciousness and there's a subconsciousness, but there's also a sub-will as well. There is an inverted will. And it's like when you try and do something, there is something in us that does the opposite, that self-sabotages. So you try to, I'm going to write a book, and you start it out and it's amazing, and then it pitters off. And you just lose interest, or you can't force yourself to do it. Or, you go, I'm going to meditate every day, and then, you do it every day, an hour every day, and then like day 3 happens, and just as you're about to go, you get a phone call from your mom, and she's telling you stuff, and then you forget, and you're like, oh shit, I forgot to meditate, and then I'll do it the next day, and then work makes you work overtime, and you're exhausted, and reasons happen, and the practice unfolds, and you stop meditating. There is always an inverted will that fights your will. And this is where manifestation comes in, like the manifestation crowd. All manifestation is different tricks to get around the inverted will in your subconsciousness. It's like, certain affirmations, but doing them in a sleepy state or a hypnotic state, or like a self-auto-suggestion techniques. Even the guys who just, the business bros who just look in a mirror and it's like, you're the best. And they just say it over and over again or something. What's the best way? What's the easiest way to hypnotize someone is through repetition. So through repetition, they embed something in their subconsciousness. And it's like, you've heard this line before. How many times have you heard someone say, I tried and I tried and I tried, and then I gave up and it happened? How many times have you heard that? That is, when your will, you try to will something, there is an inverted will that wills against it. If you keep willing, it feels like you're hitting a wall, but what happens is that inverted will willing against it, there's like an energy that builds up. And then when you give up, that energy disperses and goes into the universe, and the energy is embedded with your intention. And so that actually can, well, depending on what you're trying to will, if you want to will yourself to be the best boxer in the world, but you're just sitting on the couch all day eating whatever, nothing's going to happen. But if you're training continuously and, eating the right things and doing things and going out to tournaments and fighting and playing, then doing that intention work, that manifestation work as well, that visualization work as well, can have an effect. There is a thing with it, even in like going back to business bros, there's some like lore in the business world. I'm not sure how to, L-O-R-E, I'm not sure how to do, like business lore. There's this thing that salesmen say, and they say like, you got to keep calling, you got to keep going out, you got to keep trying. And you'll go a month, 2 months, 3 months without making any sales, but then someone will call you and they will make a really big order and that will cover you for your entire quarter. But the thing is, if you weren't working, if you weren't going out, if you weren't making those calls, they would have never called you. So there's this thing where willpower has a connection with the universe. You have to use it in a specific way. But the question, see, the manifestation people are just cool with that. They're just cool with using the techniques. They're cool with playing with the in-between worlds of the subconsciousness. The real question is if there's a consciousness and a subconsciousness, if there's a will and an inverted will, how do you fuse them together? How do you have a transcendental will then? How do you know, what's that process? It's like, because, you know, the Buddha doesn't need to do manifestation sitting in his jail cell. He just wills himself into bliss. How do you do that? So that's what kind of the work is. And that's where, you know, what that Jungian, the Jungian phrase, your consciousness, but you have a subconsciousness, and if you ignore the subconsciousness, and if you ignore your desires, your shadows, and you suppress that, it will influence your life, and you will call it fate. So the more consciousness you gain, potentially, the more will you also gain. And so how do you do that? Well, there's this process, the magical process. The higher cylinders, the higher genius, the perfect nature, the holy guardian angel, that thing is within your subconscious. And your magical practice is trying to draw it out. There's kind of magical practice working with other spirits, but as Dion Fortune says, it's like what separates a spiritualist from an occultist is a spiritualist just wants to work with, like, you know, spirits of the dead almost, whereas an occultist wants to connect to masters, i.e. beings who started out like you, but then did something and became something else. And it's like doing that then leads you to find the internal master. And it's then this Hyros Gamos that fuses the internal master, or you, with that higher self, the consciousness with the subconscious. And then it's like, it's wrong to call it subconscious because it's no longer sub. But then it's like the consciousness is also only the consciousness because it's in dual opposition to something below it. And so what do you have in the end? You have something that's kind of neither and both. It's not man, it's not God, it's a secret third thing. Something that can will. Something that is in the world and can will the world. That is what an initiate is. So read up a little bit on magical idealism as well. That's an interesting framework. Avola's magical idealism is hot stuff, hot stuff. You know, Tapas is great, says Schizoprophet. Hyperdeterminism. Erod Biggins asks, what's your thought on astral projection induced by meditation? Thank you for all you do and introducing me into true occultism. Oh, thank you, Biggins. Thoughts on astral projection by meditation? Yeah, I think it's good. I think that's ultimately the level you want to cultivate it to. Like, I get lucid dreaming and I get, you know, doing techniques to fall asleep into the astral and things like that, but the level you want to get to is during the day, sit down, relax, and go out into your astral body. That's the level you want to reach. That's the highest goal of theosophy, lol. But that's kind of the level you want to reach, for it to be consistent and useful, at least. And it's like, the Golden Dawn teach scrying first, which I think is important. I think it's better. People get too hyped about astral projection, like you got to do astral projection, it's like the first thing you learn. Whereas like when you look at the traditions, it's not the first thing you learn. And it's hard because there are some people who are naturals at it, like they've done something in their past life and they can just do it for whatever reason. And that throws a lot of people off. I actually don't think it's the first thing you should practice. I think you should focus on something more like scrying, or something more like... I did dunk on visions before, but not the visualization, but kind of like the receiving of visions. Like read the Candle Vision by fucking AE, what's his name? Wallace something. The Irish Hermeticist, Candle Vision, look that up. And it's like you want to start working with visions. You want to start, and then if you can work with visions, start trying to scry. Trying to scry different locations. And if you can scry a different location, what happens when you scry an entity? Can you talk with an entity, and it's like, if you can scry something that's invisible, then it's like, well, can you what happens when you scry yourself then? Then it's like, you use that to go inside in a sense. What do they call it in Hermeticism? Or sorry, in Golden Dawn they call it scrying, and then they say descrying is like their term for astral projection. Sometimes they'll say astral projection, sometimes they won't, but it's like they've got their own kind of system. But the important thing for them is it's a system. Some guys are just like, just do a mantra while sitting down and you'll astrally project. And it's like, there's something missing in between doing the mantra and astral projection. Astral projecting, maybe some people can do that, but it's a problem if only some people can do that. It's not an objective science then. It's not an objective technique if only some people get a result out of that. You know what I mean? I'm out. Y'all have fun, people. See ya, Schizo. Pansofa movement. Yes. Thank you, brother. It's 4 a.m. for me, so it's really magical that I could talk to you right now. Oh, damn, 4 a.m. for Mark. Germany, 1940, favorite history. 1+, thank you for your response. I was able to catch the near end of it, as I'm currently stuck in the crystal prison known as being a Domino's delivery driver. Damn, that's hard stuff. 1+, that's hard stuff. Another guy says, Richard, do you think magic work is necessary for achieving consciousness and stuff? So only doing certain practices that aren't magic, such as meditation, AP, chakras, etc., wouldn't be enough? No. Like, look, meditation is a system on its own. But the problem is go to a meditation school and meet a guy who's 40 years into Zen meditation. What has he experienced about gods and angels? There's something missing. There seems to be something missing. To me, it seems like all the systems used to be complete. And people will say, oh, it's a complete system, but it's like, no, it always just seems to be fragments. That's why, just doing meditation is great, but then you're not really explaining what these other beings are that exist. But then just working with the other beings doesn't explain what, chakras are. Just doing astral projection doesn't explain everything. And so it's hard because it's not that you got to do a little everything, but it's like, hey, have a meditation as a base, and then also use that refined collective consciousness to then, do magical practices, to try and work with a celestial entity, a planetary intelligence. Try it out. See what happens. See what the effects are. It becomes a scientific adventure as well. And it's like, hey, if you find an amazing Taoist teacher who can, I don't know, or a yoga teacher who's actually psychic, or a Taoist teacher that can light shit on fire with his mind or something, like, hey, and they want to teach you their entire system and you have a master to student relationship, go for it. But not all of us are Carlos Castaneda. Most people in the world are not going to have access to an initiate. So in the end, you have to act like there are no initiates in the world. They've all left us and we're on our own. And you kind of got to pull things together. And what you'll find is a lot of people are full of shit, but every now and then you'll meet someone or find someone who isn't necessarily a master, but they are definitely at an intermediate level. They've developed some skills. They've cultivated something. And they're the people who you want to make your peers. You want to reach the level that you can be their peer. So you follow them for a while. But to be a teacher means that you teach something, and once your student has learnt that thing, they then know it and they stop being your student. So movements that I'm 20 years in and this guy is my master, and it's like, so he hasn't taught you correctly, basically. If you're in here 20 years and you're still a loser, fuck you. It's like, you can't do that. You can't do that. If there's an actual teaching, then it should embed in you some kind of skill, some kind of attribute, some quality. And then your teacher is no longer your teacher is your peer. That should just happen. That should just happen. Read Dion Fortune's book, Secret Orders and Their Work. She has some very interesting takes. She's a very wise woman. Very wise woman. So check out that book, Secret Orders and Their Work by Dion Fortune. And she kind of gives a breakdown on like what orders are legit or what you should see when you meet a real teacher or encounter a real order. It's a good book. It's a good book. Thank you, though, says OnePlus. Do you need to do ceremonial magic or other systems? Find one that suits, bruh. I enjoy a little bit of ceremony. I enjoy a little pomp. But yeah, if you're... The problem with stuff like chaos magic is, for me, it ends up being too ATM spirituality. It's geared towards, I want thing, so I do thing, which is just I press button and I have thing happen. I want to impress my subjective reality onto the objective world. That's what magic is to people. Magic is your will reflecting into the world. It's like, once again, I've said before, but that's just, I find that a reduction. Magic, and this is, I should say, I don't class magic into black and white, I class magic into high and low. And low magic is fine. Low magic is fine. Low magic is that spiritual ATM. You manifest, you do something. That's, all low magic is basically some form of like manifestation or probability manipulation. High magic wants to transform the individual themselves. The end goal of high magic is regeneration, reconciliation, and reintegration of all of the broken parts of your being into one being, so that you become one. And maybe after that, after you have divine individuality, maybe that's it, maybe there's God, maybe there's other divine individuals, and you find yourself somewhere in a hierarchy amongst them, and then there's some higher thing where you move up a hierarchy towards the end goal or something like that. But we're here, we're in the shit. And so I want to practice high magic. I want the results of high magic. I don't really care about low magic. I don't really care about chaos magic. And so when you look at old texts on ceremonial magic and grimoire magic, it comes in two classes. It's like, well, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You want to find buried treasure? You want to do an erotic binding spell? You want to turn invisible? Or then there's this goal of the wise that is talked about. There's, in the Picatrix, there's all these random spells for random shit. And then just randomly, what is it? Book 3, Chapter 6? A spell to uncover the higher nature. So I just spit directly on my screen there. Uncover the perfect nature. And it's this weird, like, you must create this glass and find a deep hole and descend into it, and the winds will blow out your light, and you have to make a glass casing to protect the light that you have, and then when you reach the bottom, there are these 4 tunnels, and you're like, what the fuck is this perfect nature spell? And then you kind of think it's like, you're entering into the earth, you're entering into yourself, you're moving down into the darkness, you're introverted, you're closing your eyes, and there are these winds, your thoughts try to blow out the light, i.e. the consciousness, they're trying to make you go to sleep or make you fantasize about something irrelevant. But you go, no, the alchemist glass then protects the consciousness. It guards against the winds of the mind, and you go deeper and deeper. And then when you reach the bottom, there are these, 4 directions, 4 angels, 4 elements. And then, you invoke the perfect nature. You kind of see amongst all of that stuff about weird manifestation and money magic and love magic, and there's something else. There's something that's being taught. And that's what I'm interested in. What do you think about occult social engineering? It's real. Chud Thundercock. Learn Latin first, then other Romance languages. Yeah, maybe I should just do that. You would come back for us? That's so sweet. Dang, left-wing Heideggerian. I have no right to judge, as I come from the left-wing Nietzschean tradition. Oh, that's really interesting. Honestly, pretty based. We have anime in this time period, though. Says Cyril. Yeah, I know, right? I'd be giving up all the animes. That's true. Yeah, in this time period, we have Elden Ring, which I still haven't played. The next reincarnation cycle may not have an hentai. Jesus Christ. Spend a whole lifetime to transcend an isekai to live in anime. The fuck was that? Sorry, I have no idea what that was. At my mum's house, I have no idea what that was. Cults for real. Should I start a cult? Here come the cults. Try to find impressionable strangers that ghost them online. Hot Gnostic singles. Unfiltered and pure, you're rambling. Thank you. Love it all, man. Keep it up. Fun to listen to a fellow seeker. That's why I listen. Thank you, Ivor. Some quality yapping. Es Portuguese? Yeah, I'd love to learn. I'd learn a little Portuguese as well. Sones, Thelema, Sones. Everyone's going full Brazilian in the chat. Also listening and thinking about what to do in my spiritual life after working through 10 years of trouble from a Kundalini awakening. So there's that lol. Yeah. Lamau being straight all the time is kind of gay. Have you read anything by Manly P. Hall? Manly P. Hall is another, I would say, kindergarten teacher, but I don't mean that in disrespect for Manly P. Hall. I think everyone should read a little Manly P. In fact, after I finish Bob's Tales by Gurdjieff on Livestream, I'm really thinking of just going through Secret Teachings of All Ages, because that's something everyone should experience. And I haven't gone through that all myself. There are a bunch of chapters I've read, but I haven't gone through the whole thing cover to cover. So I totally think about that. I'm thinking about that. I caved, let a cute girl read my palm yesterday. Is there actually anything to palm reading if it's done properly? I got pretty extreme mixed results from her, but she did indeed riz me up. Yeah, no, palm reading's legit. Once again, but it became one of those things like, astrology and Kundalini and yoga. So it went through the New Age filter at one point, so I'm not sure how much legit palm reading stuff is out there. But yeah, there's a legit tradition, because it's like, it's to do with, kind of like astrobiology, like the cosmic rays imprint signs on the human themselves. But then just by looking at a part of a human, you should also be able to derive it. So from the eye or iridology, or from the palm or the feet or whatever. But, so there's something esoteric to it, but it's kind of waned in recent years, and once again, it went through that New Age filter, and it's now cringe. But yeah, there could be some good stuff. Type of manifestation is like the main selling point of chaos magic. Too kind of their sigils interesting. That's how Vegeta became a Super Saiyan, says Chuck. I didn't care anymore. Yeah, that's true, actually. That is how Vegeta became a Super Saiyan. Prod to Loose, do you have a video on will polarity? And if not, can you make one? Maybe, yeah. It's chlamydia. Another guy, what's the difference between God and man? And God, I mean lil g. Seems like it's not just a matter of consciousness, but also something else. What about human and demon? So, here's the thing. And this is my critique of a lot of Buddhist people who go too far into consciousness. There is consciousness, and then there is something else. I actually don't believe it's all just consciousness. There's something else weird going on. There is, and I don't want to call it matter, but there is some kind of substance. And that's where I think Gurdjieff is right and makes my pee-pee throbbing, where he talks about higher being bodies. So yeah, you're trying to balance yourself. You got to get that psychology going. You got to be a balanced man. And then also, you got to get the higher cylinders rolling. Yeah, the higher self. I love it. But then there's something else. There's something that's crystallized. There's something that becomes permanent. It's like there is no true I, but can you create a true I? Is that something going on? It's like, oh, there's no Ant-Man, but it's like, yeah, look, if there is the beginning of creation and the end of creation, if something arises at the beginning of creation and then doesn't cease until the end of the universe, technically, yeah, it's not eternal, but by our time scale, it is kind of irrelevant, and it is eternal. It's almost like the Buddhists are split in hairs, where they're saying it's like, oh, you have a number one, and then you have 0.9999 off into infinity, and it's like, yeah, it's technically not number one, but you can still use that number, a 0 with a 0.999 off into infinity, you can still use that in calculations, and times it with other numbers, and it will function the same as 1. Yeah, it's technically not 1, but it's basically the same. That's all I'm saying. I'm not being an eternalist. I'm just saying, like, Can you create something that outlives the universe? Maybe. And maybe that's like the goal, actually. It's not just raising your consciousness and ejecting from creation. It's raising your consciousness and then doing something that crystallizes something permanent. And so that's what a god is. A god is, as Paracelsus said this about angels, he said angels are just humans who have perfect knowledge of themselves. So think of a human with all of their past lives. Basically, you become like a Kwisatz Haderach. You become Leto II from Dune. Something like that. That's what an angel is like. But it's not just that they are at that level of consciousness. There's also a substance has been worked and has been created. And that substance is their body now, that higher being substance. They have a higher being body. And maybe there's just one being body and it gets coated a bunch of times. And there are other beings and some are have different colors, or some are gold and some are purple and divine or something. And or maybe there's a set of being bodies that you have to derive or something. Yeah. There's different traditions on that, but that's where I'm at the moment. At least with my understanding, that's where I'm at. Saint says, when I was at Diddy's house, I'm going to read that one out. Paladin Skyblade, I just joined. Any thoughts to how to pursue as a complete beginner? I think I've got a video on my channel for occult books for beginner. I should probably make a new book recommendation list, but just watch that video, bro. Yo, this still going? Yes, it is UFO. People keep asking questions. Meditation is the first step. I saw a deleted message. You can't hide. The stream is awesome. Please do more. Okay, yeah. I'll see. Well, I thought I would look like a fanboy. Oh, Akash, you are a fanboy. It's okay, fanboy bro. Don't be shamed. I love you, Akash. I love you too. So becoming bros in the comments here. Honestly, don't really have much interest in lower magic. Don't have much interest in this material. Yeah, same. Just enough for decent living. Exactly. Balance your physical life and then just go full Sigma male into high magic. That's what we got to do. Mozart's spirit, thoughts on Rudolph Steiner. Yeah, he's based. There's some scholarship that has come out about him where it's like, yeah, he's not as... He drew from sources and didn't quote them, which makes sense because everyone's like, oh my God, he knew all of this stuff. And it's like, it makes more sense that he was a philosopher and then drew from a bunch of places and then, child rearing, architecture, pharmacology, things like that. And it's like, and then he makes himself seem like the perfect, jack of all trades, but it makes much more sense that he's just a very well elevated, he's a philosopher and a mystic and an occultist. And then he kind of drew from these other places and it kind of makes him more hype than he is. But I mean, everybody did that back in the day. It's just like, that's a great idea. This idea is now my idea. But knowledge of higher worlds, I would rate that very high top for a beginner book as well. Knowledge of Higher Worlds by Rudolph Steiner. Everybody should read that book. That's a perfect book for a beginner. Read Knowledge of Higher Worlds by Rudolph Steiner. It's great, and then you get to the last two chapters, and I would say it's not so great. But this is why I think it's a good book, because it's good to read something and not just take everything for granted. You don't want to just be like, everything this person is telling me is the truth, because you become passive. You want to read something and still be active. Don't let it just go in without, don't just let it go into your kind of like conscious and accept it, just kind of half off, just actively participate with it. So there are some things in that book that I don't agree with, particularly the last two chapters, but that book, Knowledge of Higher Worlds, is gold. And to cultivate in yourself that confidence to just read someone like Steiner and be like, no, you're wrong, that is useful. Because once again, you don't want to be a simp cuck that takes everything that just takes everything that everyone says. You want to have a kind of discernment. Discernment is a faculty in and of itself. Be the doubting Thomas, who's just like, hold on, you're Jesus, show me them holes. Come on, bro. Let me let me finger your holes. If you don't let me finger your holes, I'm not believing you. Like, discernment is actually healthy. To be a completely mechanical skeptic that reacts off of everything is not helpful, but having a discernment and being able to discern what is cringe from what is based in occultism is necessary. It's necessary. This is a haunting channel now. Oh no. So A. Williams' Candle of Light. I would love you read that for us. Yeah, maybe. Maybe I'll do that. Many people is indeed cool. He was very handsome. He was a pretty boy. Reading streams are cool. You should do it more often. Gotta find the time. You see, I gotta just get my channel up to like a whole bunch of subscribers, get a bunch of money, then quit my job and just do streaming full time. That's the dream, baby. In India, there's legit palm reading books. Yeah, definitely. Palm reading is esoteric phrenology, so it's based. I agree. So the end goal is to be immortal. I mean, it's a goal. And when I mean immortal, I don't mean physical immortality. Like, this body is kind of cringe, not going to lie. But what is immortal? It's something that is permanent. And in the end, at least you can get your consciousness to retain memory. Like, what's that thing about Pythagoras? The story of Pythagoras is he was a great warrior who fought in the Trojan Wars. And when he died, Hermes asked him, "What is one thing that you want, my son?" And he said, "I never want to forget." And so from that point onwards, he always remembered every life he had. So Pythagoras allegedly knew all of his past lives. And that's why he was such a wise boy. And that to me is so useful, because it's like people are like, oh, if you're not a Buddhist, you're just going to remain trapped in samsara, blah, 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 multiple penises, whatever. I don't care. To me, it doesn't matter. If you're trapped in the prison, but you know you're trapped in the prison, that's super, super useful. Whereas if you're just gung-ho for liberation and you don't have that faculty of memory, and you die, and you don't make it out the bardos, something goes wrong for whatever reason, and you get put in another body, you're basically back at square one. But if you have eternal memory, then that to me is something very desirable. Then you're not just an angsty being towards death. You become something like a being that has a perspective outside of time and space. It's like you get the save checkpoint thing now. You're able to just move through creation in a more detached way, and then you can definitely work towards an escape then. So I'm pro perpetual consciousness, eternal memory as the basis of immortality. I don't really care about biological immortality, not gonna lie. NGL. Let me check it out. When Twitch streams, if I'm able to start full-time streaming more, I'll definitely start Twitch streaming. Maybe I'll stream. I have this fantasy about doing chess streams. I want to get better at chess. Losers cannot be initiates. Damn straight. Cash, Lamau, that one's stinged. Knowledge of high worlds just seems so preachy. Oh, really? Maybe. It's good stuff. I mean, some of the first chapters may be a bit bland. He has one chapter about purification, illumination, initiation. At least, if you don't want to read the whole thing, at least crack that open and read the chapter on purification, illumination, initiation. That's solid stuff. It's solid stuff. Thanks. I'm going to check that video. 10 occult books for beginners. No probs. Is this stream going to be available to watch later? I sure hope so. I cannot go through any occult or philosophical text without stopping and disagreeing and going off on a 15-minute schizo rant, wishing I could just talk to the author face-to-face. Good. Damn, bro, you got consciousness straight from Hermes? Yeah, that's Pythagoras right there. What decides if you retain some memory or if you go back to square one? Where's the line? Exactly. So it may be you got to create a higher being body to kind of have a thing for the memories to kind of sit on, because the memories are still there in your consciousness, they're just in your subconsciousness. So is it like you awaken your consciousness, and this fusion, or the attainment of the higher genius, or the fusion with the holy guardian angel, that then lets you, is that the same as attaining past life memories, or is that like, do you gain all your past life memories after that, or is there's another description that's given as like, imagine a tree with all of the leaves being the past lives, or all of your memories from all of your past lives. And it's like, when you have your life, even in this life, you don't remember everything. Like, you don't remember what you had for breakfast like 3 years ago at a specific date, because it's useless to kind of remember that stuff. But there's stuff that's definitely useful. There's wisdoms locked in your past lives. And it's like, what is happening, the process of recovering your past lives, you don't actually want all of them. What you want is all of the leaves to fall away, and just the tree. The tree itself is the distillation of all of that wisdom that comes into you. So perhaps there's a kind of an intuition that is awoken, that has all of your past life knowledge, and you just you follow the intuition. But it could also be that once you attain that, if you have a higher being body, then after you die, after every incarnation after that, you just kind of remember everything in a kind of one flow. But to a degree, even if you don't have that, there should be some mechanism in the universe that prevents everything that is useful, all of the wisdom that you have gained from all of your past lives, from being lost. Nothing is lost. There should be some mechanism that holds that. Even if it's just vaguely lost in your subconsciousness and you can only get to it through a kind of intuitional impulses, there should be some kind of mechanism. When you remember your human life as different being that cannot interpret anymore would be crazy. Yeah, and so that's the other thing that's interesting. That's one thing they see in yoga schools. When you awaken the Kundalini, there's also an inversion that goes down into the body, because there are chakras in the legs, but initiation has to start at the spine, because that's where the human consciousness begins. Whereas there's animal consciousness in the legs. So if you awaken the chakras in the legs too early, you get animal consciousness back from all of your past lives as an animal. I thought that's really interesting, because in the West, prior to Eastern teachings come in, they say initiation happens at the feet. That's the Christ washing at the feet, the foundation stone being placed at the feet. Initiation begins at the feet and then goes upwards. And so there's something very interesting about that. Maybe that's why in the West the focus is more on ethics. Like, you build an ethics so strong that even when these bestial elements awaken within you, the ethics kind of holds that energy in place, and then you kind of get to this more human and then more divine consciousness as you go up or something. Hit and go in Monopoly versus hit and go straight to jail. Exactly. Time to get the true dragon body and become the universe. Damn straight. Damn straight. See, even in that Chinese fiction, the cultivation literature, even in that fiction stuff, there's something reflected from reality. I love that stuff. I fear I've burned many of those trees as fuel for my current life, honestly. Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, all of the trees of our past lives. Just got to get that higher being body going, man. Anyway, we're coming up to like 3 hours, so thank you everyone for the hang. I'm going to call it here. Thank you for Kona for donating. Good luck. I gotta see where my family's at. But yeah, thank you for coming along to this Q&A live stream. Hope you guys had a good time. And I'll see y'all next week for the next Burgy live stream. And yeah, keep your eyes open. I'll be getting that occult compass thing going as well. I'm halfway through. I'll get it done. I promise. Anyway, now how the fuck do I end a live stream on my phone? Holy sh! Actually, no. This is the next thing. How do I end it now? Oh god. Do I just click the X? What do I do? Oh no. Okay. Are you sure you want to stop streaming? Okay. Goodbye, everybody.